good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The following show is just horrifying. Beware.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
I'll always associate Cell with Family Guy. Remember that sketch where they do a cutaway to King talking to his agent about his next book, and he picks up a lamp and goes, "Ooh, how about a book about a scary lamp?" That aired soon after Cell came out. And I get it. I remember seeing Cell in the grocery store or at Meijer and shrugging at it. It felt timely in a sort of obnoxious way. Phones as an omnipresent phenomenon was a relatively new concept, and there was plenty of hand-wringing about it in the news and elsewhere. So I get the Family Guy joke. Stephen King's been the master of horror for as long as the guys who made Family Guy have been alive. He's always publishing books, always. And his most famous stories are typically built around an easily identifiable thing. A car, a dog, a cat, a hotel, a dreamcatcher. JK, the Dreamcatcher serves no purpose in Dreamcatcher. So I get the joke. The joke sucks, but I get the joke because even I felt like King was being lazy when I saw Cell on the rack. But that wasn't the only reason I never bought it or read it. No, I've never read this one. I was in college, for one. I just discovered James Joyce, and anyone who's ever gotten into Joyce, if they're being honest, will tell you that for a spell at least, it turned them into the most pretentious prick on the planet. I did that. I only read fancy fiction. I still loved King, but I thought I was past King. It's a period I think every King fan goes through. The real ones, of course, come back. They always come back. Or sometimes they come back.
Sometimes, yeah.
But it wasn't just that. Roughly a year and a half previous, I'd read The Dark Tower, see our episode from December, and it felt like an ending. He talked about it in that book's afterword, like it was an ending. Weirdly, Cell almost feels like starting over again. Like King was going back to basics with a simple, stripped-down, straightforward horror book. That's true, of course, to some degree, but it wasn't what I wanted at that time. You see, I was reading James Joyce. Well, I've read Cell now, and it is a simple, stripped-down, straightforward horror book, and that's interesting with context, because we're in post-accident, post-tower, post-Y2K, post 9/11. All of these things really did shape King's work, obviously, if you've listened to this podcast over the last year. So I don't know. That's my Cell story. That's why I never read it. And I'm really excited to talk about it because I feel like it is weirdly unique in that this is, I'll say this, and I'll probably repeat myself in final thoughts, but a lot of people describe certain King books as like trash or like, I don't know, like dime store kind of fiction. I don't think that's true for most King, even some of his like gnarlier books. This one, I think that's true, but I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I feel like that's something we'll discuss. So Mike, introduce yourself, say hello, and tell us what's your Cell story and what edition did you read?
Hey, this is Michael Monroe Vilmal Rothman, and I, unlike you, was coming back to King. So, you know, like cause a wheel, I certainly was one way. Cell was really interesting to me because I wasn't a constant reader of like The Dark Tower. So when he's issuing those books, I was like, I have no fucking clue how to get into those. So I'll wait around until he comes back, with something else.
You got into Kuntz for a while.
Yeah, I got into Kuntz for a while. Honestly, I was probably just like you reading. I was probably like on a Dennis Johnson kick, and I was just like, I want to read Jesus Son for the eighth time again. But honestly, that book is pretty great, but I lost it to a girl that I used to see. But anyway, so in 2006, when Cell actually did come out, it was a big deal, and we're going to go into why it was a big deal and talking about the history of it all. But it was an even bigger deal because not only did I pick up Cell as a hardcover that I read at the Department of Transportation when I worked there, I also was really excited because Stephen King was coming to my school. And at the time, I was at Florida State University. And at the time, he was basically, I mean, he was obviously coming in there in the wake of Cell and to be able to talk about the the new book that was coming out. But like King always does, he always had the next story in mind. And at that time, he read actually the short story that would inspire Duma Key, which is a book that we're going to be covering later this summer. So I was like all back into King's Dominion, and I had been reading Cell, and I enjoyed it, and I remember reading it nonstop at the front desk. And I hated it. Like, I loved the first half, or at least the first part. But then, as the evolution, for lack of a better word, happens with the enemies or the phoners, the phone people. I just found the phonies. I started getting a little like irritated with it, and I cleansed my palate with my first real adult read of The Stand. And for me, that's what I always remember is that like, oh, this is the better version of this. And I remember like devouring that book right after this, and then honestly, that's what I've kept on the path of the beam, so to speak, since then. Because from there, went into like Duma Key, and then obviously with the Dome and everything else that came out to that, and then only what is it, 8 years later, 7 years, 10 years later, we decided to do this podcast. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm really excited to get to this book and for us to discuss this book, because in many ways this is really like my first like adult experience with a new King book. So yeah.
What edition did you read your hardcover again?
It was the first. Well, for this one, I ended up getting a paperback because I love to mark it up, and it was I don't know what it is. This can't be like the one that came out at.
I think we have the same one.
It's like it's a this really one? Yeah. It's like your number is up.
Yeah, it looks like a shitty like straight to VHS or.
Oh yeah, it looks like something that you'd find in a Walmart like DVD bin. So.
It looks like a poster for the movie.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Anna. Tell me about your Cell origin story. We'll introduce yourself first, and then tell me about your Cell origin story. And when did you get your first cell phone?
I am Anna Marie Pixie Dark Cox. I read this when it came out. Fuzzy on the details. I remember hating the ending.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephen King likes himself some cheese.
Mm-hmm.
But it's extra gooey, I feel like, this ending. And I didn't know how I would feel about it the second time through. I think I might have liked it a little better, although I still don't like it very much. It feels like a writing exercise almost.
Yeah.
Like if someone did, like he was watching Family Guy and someone said, write a horror novel about the nearest object to you. He was like, oh, I guess I have to write about a cell phone. And
it's like a creative writing 101 exercise.
Yeah. And under those constraints, it's okay. But it's also funny. It's like the Stephen King trope-a-rama as terms of like.
Oh, yeah. We'll be talking about that most definitely. When did you get your first cell phone, Anna?
Well, I was in my late 20s because I'm older than all of you.
Did you love your cell phone?
See, because I'm older than all of you, the reason I got a cell phone is that I was covering politics. And you had to have a cell phone because editors would call you.
Yeah.
And see if you were working and ask you where your story was.
That doesn't sound fun.
So you did not love your cell phone.
No, but I also remember I got the first iPhone. I was covering the McCain campaign. And like stopped at a mall or something like during the campaign and got the first iPhone and the first Kindle later in that same campaign. And those I really loved.
Yeah.
Like I remember loving the iPhone immediately, and then the Kindle also, which is also what I read the book on
your
actually.
Kindle.
I am trying to shift my life over to Kindle, having moved 5 times in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Lugging books around is no fun.
It's the worst. Yeah. Second to like maybe vinyl. It's just the worst to pack up. Yeah.
So
I was way behind in getting a smartphone. Everyone had them before me, and I called them internet phones, thinking I was being like a cool Luddite. And then, of course, I became horribly addicted to my iPhone. So, Jen, say hello and tell us your cell experience and also the last time you looked at your phone.
Probably seconds ago. I mean, I've been I've been listening attentively to everyone. No, it is right next to me over there on the charger. Hey, this is Jen Baby Nike Adams, and like Cell has this like really peculiar like memory that I have attached to it. This is what brought me back to King. I was like, I think a year or two out of college, or maybe still in college. I can't remember. It was right around like early 20s kind of time. It was really deep in what I think of as like Jen is bad with boyfriends time, like real sad Jen codependency time. And I was reading a bunch of like what I kind of think of as like angry boy books. Like I was reading like Naked Lunch and Chuck Palahniuk and like The Godfather and like Wise Guy and all of these.
I love Godfather as a bad boyfriend book.
Well, the new one was out at the time, wasn't it? Like the Godfather Returns, because one of our teachers read it. Yeah,
that might be an interesting episode for us to do at some point because there are just so much to say about that book. But so I remember I was thinking about moving to North Carolina because my boyfriend, we were not actually dating anymore because he had dumped me, but I was like, I should move to North Carolina because then we'll get back together. So I was going to a job fair and it had gone terribly and I really didn't want to go home because I was like,
did somebody drive their car into it?
No, thank God they did not, but it may have been the second worst job fair, I guess, in Stephen King adjacent terms. But anyway, so like I had missed 2 flights at this point because I really didn't want to go home. And I was just sitting, I kept getting in arguments with my friend who was like letting me stay on her couch and my parents who wanted me to come back and my boss who wanted me to come back. So I was just sitting in this Raleigh airport sobbing. And I was like, what can I do? And I just looked and I saw that Cell was on sale in the airport bookstore. So I bought it and I was like, well, this will make me feel better. And it did. But I just like will always remember like just sitting and just crying and reading this book in this Raleigh airport. And it brought me back to Stephen King. So I can't remember if I finished the book or not, but so here we are.
Well, what year did this come out?
2006.
Yeah.
2006. So yeah, it was a little, I think I graduated in 2004. So yeah, it was a couple of years after college.
If I haven't introduced myself, so I'll say my name is Rockin' Randall Flesh Canoe Colburn, because that is one of the most grotesque, disgusting phrases I've ever found in a King book, and it was here, and I'm going to read it again later, because I was quite impressed, to be honest. Okay, a few basics as we head into the Derry Public Library. Cell came out on January 24th, 2006. Shocker, it debuted in the #1 spot on the New York Times bestseller list, but only remained there for 3 weeks before it was dethroned by James Patterson and Maxine Petro's The Fifth Horseman. I'm sure that didn't make King happy. And then it dropped off the chart completely after 10 weeks, so it wasn't the highest selling King book, but, certainly nothing to sniff at. And then let's dig a little bit deeper into the origins in a section we call the Derry Public Library.
Mike Hanlon, if you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Tell Mike Hanlon that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him I'll see him tonight.
Get out! Last chance, told ya. Get out! Get out!
Hello, here we discuss the origins of the book, the history, some of the reviews, and the general press around the book when it came out. There wasn't a ton of reviews around this, but there was one. Mike, I'm going to let you sort of take the lead on this, but there was a podcast interview that he did with Simon and Schuster. And this podcast in which King just kind of monologues, to me, was the most revealing and I think like the only interview we needed about Cell. Although there are a few other things that we're going to discuss. But yeah, Mike, how would you sort of characterize this interview?
I mean, it really is just like, hey, we have this new medium, the podcast. Why don't we use that as a press release? Because, I mean, as we'll discuss, they were definitely leaning on the sort of modern techniques of, I guess, marketing and everything else that was happening. I mean, all of this feels very 2006, like all of it, like down to like reading just how they were, conceptualizing, issuing this out altogether. I mean, it's all very like novel ideas. So I think with the podcast, they were probably like, let's do this too. It'll be cool. It'll be modern. It'll be hip. And it feels like it's like a press release. Like you're not listening to a podcast. It just feels like a, an audio.
But he gets so candid in it, which is funny because, like you said, like Simon and Schuster was marketing it by being like, "Hey, it's a book about technology. We're going to use every technological means available." And then King is on this interview like, "Your phone is a slave bracelet." So.
Yeah, but I think with him, he like once you get him talking, and as we saw last year, it's like he will talk. Like he,
absolutely.
So
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of it's very insightful. I'll say
it
that.
Is. Yeah.
Where do we want to start here? Do we want to
start with the origins? Start right at the beginning. Why don't you read the first quote here?
Okay, so he said, God, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. People want it, so I got to do it. I got the idea for Cell out of a very clear blue sky. It was one of those lightning strike ideas. Sometimes ideas create very slowly, and sometimes they come like they're delivered in a kind of aha moment, almost fully loaded, cocked and locked and ready to go. I was coming out of a hotel in New York, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Remember, this is 2006. There are people at Scribner, actually, who would know better than I would because I brought the idea up almost immediately because I started asking geographical questions. I was that excited by the idea. My wife and I were staying at a New York hotel, and we came out of the lobby into that area underneath the overhang where the limousines and taxi cabs pull up. And there was a woman standing there, and she was talking on his cell phone, and the doorman was next to her, and he was hailing her a cab. And I thought, for no reason whatsoever, I wonder what would happen if that woman got a message over her cell phone that drove her crazy, and she just started to attack people, starting with the doorman next to her. And she continued to attack, homicidal. And then he attacked people with whatever she had, her teeth, her fingernails, the cement, whatever, until she was literally brought down and killed. And I thought that, frankly, the doorman would be very easy because he certainly wouldn't be expecting an attack from this well-dressed, mink-wearing, high-heeled wearing woman who was waiting for a cab. And then he says,
"You want me to read the rest so you can give your voice a break?"
No, I'll round it out just to do this. From there, I immediately jumped to the idea of if it's her cell phone, it's everyone's cell phone in New York City. And then from there, I jumped to the idea that if it's everyone in New York City, it's everyone in the world who has a cell phone. And then from there, the idea fell into place because I was thinking to myself, well, I don't have a cell phone, therefore this wouldn't happen to me. And it became the story of a man without a cell phone who would have to try and get out of the city and get back to his family. And the story built itself very, very quickly on those lines.
So yeah, that
David
moment
Lynch
happened.
coming up with Cell, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus,
it was
so
basically
stupid.
99, 2000 when he had the idea, but he talks about, and he actually talks about like with some animus, I think, the anger he felt at like what kept him from working on it was his annoyance at New Yorkers. So I'll read this because he wanted to set it in New York. So he says, "The only reason that I didn't immediately rush back to my hotel room from where I was and start writing it was because the idea was that good and that natural was because, and frankly, New Yorkers are very, very, I don't want to say conceited, but that's the only word that comes to mind. They're very, very picky about how people describe their city. They tell you, you've got it wrong if you call the uptown side of the street the downtown side of the street. They always know where is east, where is west, the downtown, or where the theater district is, and woe is you if you get it wrong." So I started asking questions about the geography. What would be the quickest way out of New York City if you're going to New England or if you're going to New Jersey? And I got conflicting answers about that. So I didn't know exactly what to do or how to handle that. So the idea kind of sat on the back burner for a long time, strictly because I was going to kind of geographical lockdown on this subject. And then I got involved with writing a book about the Boston Red Sox called Faithful. And that year I spent almost all summer at what is that? Is that like the stadium? The stadium.
I
in
just
Boston.
took that out. Yeah, I just said spend it all the summer in Boston. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I got very, very familiar with that city. I drove in and I drove out. I got very familiar with the geography of Boston. And at some point, I was on a walk one day, and a very logical thing happened. I said to myself, "You don't need to make the story happen in New York just because that's where you got the idea. Why don't you set it in Boston?" And it's just one of those things where something's so obvious, so clear, and so much in front of you that for the longest time you don't see it. it's like you're so fixated on this one unattainable girl that goes to high school with you that you don't see how beautiful the girl next door is. And as soon as I saw Boston as a possible setting, I was able to write the book. So I find it very funny, like how annoyed he was at people like giving him shit about geography. So.
I think he's anticipating it because I mean, I always get the sense that he looks at New York as this. I mean, he's talked about this in a lot of our Archives episodes about how he sees New York as this, I don't know, this concrete like jungle that's terrifying to him. Like he always has anxiety about it, and to be quite frank, I shared the same similarities with him. I find it a very crippling city to be in, to be honest with you. But I think it's so funny that he was like, this is what stopped him from writing it. Like he's written so many stories. He's literally wrote The Stand, and he rarely even goes that much. I mean, obviously there has the stuff with Larry Underwood, but like it's not like you had to do New York City. It's just funny how that was his hindrance. I don't know.
Well, what's also funny is on writing, he makes a very strong stand that you shouldn't do research before you write. Yeah, right? Because he talks about from a Buick 8 how he wrote the story before he did a ride along. Yeah. Right? So
yeah, and he says I got most things right.
What the fuck? What the fuck, Steve? Like,
well,
and the other thing is the guy who's like so fucking like provincial about Maine and getting every little thing right about, you know, all these small towns in Maine would be upset with New Yorkers and would think that's weird that New Yorkers, you know, don't like it when people get their city wrong. Right. Yeah. It's very odd to me. Like, I don't know. And as someone who lives in New York, it's a very simple place to get around.
I mean, I feel like there might be another reason that he didn't write a story about a huge, terrible, life-changing tragedy happening in New York until like after.
Well, that's what's interesting is he says that the geographical thing was what stopped him, but you think about it and it's like 9/11. The accident, you know what I mean? Like the fact that he was like completely blown out on drugs and was recuperating and then he had to finish the Dark Tower, like that he had this mandate after he had his near-death experience where he's like, I must finish the Dark Tower. There's like a million things that I can see why this was on the back burner. It's funny that he talks about the geographical thing. And I think part of that too,
he's like, he's telling some story. Like, I don't know if he knows that he's lying is a strong word, but like,
he's focusing on just a small part of the story.
He's made up a story about why he didn't write it.
It feels like it just like I wrote it at the time that it became a thing I needed to write. And this is the reason I've pinpointed that happened, you know?
Well, and Jen, that's exactly what happened. I mean, because I'll jump to that real quick, Randall, because I think we're pretty much on that anyway. He basically had to fast track it. So, and this comes from the Paris Review Art of Fiction number 189, as if like that's really important for me to specify. But hey, at least you know.
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Well, it was actually the Paris Review, Stephen King, Art of Fiction number 189. Interesting. That was almost 19 if you added it up. Anyway, that would have blown my mind, right? But yeah, he says, you know, he called it an unplanned pregnancy. He said that, you know, it's good to give the thing at least 6 weeks to sit and breathe. I didn't always have that luxury. I didn't have it with Cell. The publisher had 2 manuscripts of mine. One of them was Lisi's story, which I'd been working on exclusively for a long time. And the other was Cell, which I had been thinking about, and it just sort of announced itself. It's time. You have to do it now. And when that happens, you have to do it or let it go. So, and as I said, he called it an unplanned pregnancy. So, he said basically, you know, this is just so crazy, his work ethic. He goes, I was carrying both of them at the same time. I had finished a first draft of Lisi, so I revised it at night, and then I worked on Cell during the day. I used to work that way when I was drinking. During the day, I would work on whatever was fresh and new, and I was pretty much straight as an arrow. Hungover a lot of the time, but straight. At night, I'd be looped, and that's when I would revise. It was fun. It was great, and it seemed to work for me for a long time, but I can't sustain that anymore. And then he says, I wanted to publish Lisi first, but Susan Moldau, Scribner's publisher, wanted to lead with Cell because she thought the attention it would receive would benefit the sale of Lisi. Look, I agree with Susan. I think it's smart. So they put Cell on a fast track, and I had to go right to work on the rewrite. This is one thing publishers can do now, which isn't always necessarily good for the book. So then he says...
I think it's interesting, just real quick, like the publisher was like, we just published a bunch of Dark Tower books that didn't sell, as well as all your other stuff.
Pretty much what I get at.
Yeah, can we get and then you want to put out, a 700-page book about your wife? No, we're gonna, or then, and then he did
put out a much worse book.
It's like Tabby saying, Steve, write a monster. We need ear medicine,
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, and then, but he also had done Colorado Kid and then Faithful. So it's all these books that are really niche, and they're like, we need old school classic Stephen King, give us Cell. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually has a really good comp about this. He compares it to Graham Greene, which I guess he was reading about, or he was reading a lot of Graham Greene at the time. And he said, Graham Greene used to talk about books that were novels and books that were entertainments. Cell was an entertainment. I don't want to say I didn't care, because I did. I care about anything that goes out with my name on it. And if you're going to do the work, and if someone is going to pay you for it, I think you ought to do the best job you can. But after I finished the first draft of Lisi, I gave myself 6 weeks, and when we return to a novel after that amount of time, it seems almost as if a different person wrote it. You're not quite as wedded to it. You find all sorts of horrible errors, but you also find passages that make you say, Jesus, that's good. And he talks about with Cell, he says, one of the ways the computer has changed the way I work is that I have a much greater tendency to edit in the camera to make the changes on the screen. With Cell, that's what I did. I read it over. I had editorial corrections. I was able to make my own corrections. And to me, that's kind of like ice skating. It's an okay way to do work, but it isn't optimal. And so, he talks about how it really was fast tracked. I mean, it really was he rushed into it, but
he's very big on saying, I think he says that on writing about how important it is to have a hard copy of it
and just let it sit.
Not just edit it on. Yeah. Let it sit, but also, print it out and sit with it, because he always said, he has a quote, I think, in On Writing, where he says I never edit on the screen. You know what I mean? Or he does, but he doesn't make his revisions necessarily. He likes to write in the margins,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really does feel like he's basically, pulling from the mind, because another quote that he had on there, and this is from the Simon Schuster podcast interview. He says, I was reading a lot of Graham Greene, like I mentioned before, and I was looking forward to the Steven Spielberg adaptation of War of the Worlds. I was very aware that Graham Greene wrote two kinds of novels. And this is what I just said. He's he made a clear distinction between the novels he called serious novels, what he thought of as literature, and then his Gun for Hire. And he called those books entertainments, as I mentioned before. And he said, I thought to myself, I would like to write a kind of Graham Greene entertainment, but I'd like to cross it with War of the Worlds. And it's that this is how his mind works. And it absolutely makes sense that he'd be okay, I can knock this out. I can do it. Mm-hmm. And in the book, not to jump ahead to final thoughts, but as what we've all been saying, it does feel like that. It absolutely feels that way. But
yeah, like I said, it feels like it feels like he wrote it on a dare.
Yeah.
Which I guess to some degree he did, right?
Yeah. I mean, technically he did that with 1408. I mean, that was a prompt that he did specifically for On Writing, and then it became, arguably his scariest story and one of the biggest blockbusters of adaptation. So it's sometimes it does work for him, but it's
prompts can work.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know if he had cut the first half of this and just made it a longer short story, like 1408, And I mean, I liked, not to jump ahead to my own final thoughts, but I liked the ending a lot better the third time I read it. Which actually surprised me. But yeah, it feels there is a really strong beginning. The prompt works really well, and then it kind of,
Yeah. Well, then we get into trope land. We get into
I'm excited to discuss my interpretation of the ending that is clearly not was intended, but made me like it a lot more. But I will tease that. We'll get there later. Let's talk about, this is where King kind of goes off. He goes bananas. He starts talking about his distrust of technology and cell phones in the interview, which is so funny because he's so online now. But so this 2006,
he's such a boomer. He is okay boomer. I mean,
there's a lot of old man yells at cloud about cell phones with this. Yeah,
but you love being political, on Twitter.
I know. I love this. So, okay, he says there's a strong distrust of the technology in all of my work, which we know to be true, especially coming off Dark Tower, Anna. Mm-hmm. So he says the computer is a valuable tool. I think it serves a valuable purpose in daily life. I don't feel the same way about the cell phone. I don't feel the same way about the little handheld gadgets that people use. I have a friend in the music business whose business manager has a BlackBerry, and the people in his band call it his Crackberry because the guy can't stay off it. And this is not an uncommon common thing. People become habituated to these tools. People become habituated to their cell phones. And yet, when you think about it, an awful lot of the talk that goes on cell phones is non-substantive talk, a lot of what happens with cell phone usage. So he basically is saying, like, nobody has important conversations on cell phones, which is a very funny kind of way to approach it. But I do think he has some interesting points that I'm going to bring up later as we go on. But for now, he keeps saying, it's a whole area of commerce that has been artificially created. It's a kind of a hydroponic culture that serves no real purpose. But at the same time, this is simply my opinion, my bent, take it with a grain of salt. But technology makes me uneasy. And if I can put it in a short form, I just say that one of the reasons that technology makes me uneasy is because I believe that our ability to build gadgets like cell phones, with their ability to take pictures, their ability to text message, to download faxes, and all the rest of these things, those abilities have far outraised our moral compass and our ability to control our bad habits. That's why you give somebody a cell phone, 10 minutes later, they're going to be downloading porn on it. And 20 minutes after that, somebody's going to tap it. So yeah, I'm really distrustful. I don't think he's wrong there. And I do want to talk about that when we get into the hook. But yeah, and then he adds, on the inevitability of cell phones in culture, he kind of admits cell phones are here to stay, I think, and it does seem like everyone has one. But then he goes on to talk about why he doesn't own a cell phone. And I would love to know when he broke, because he's got one now. But I think
it's honestly it's with the iPhone. I mean, it's crazy to think that this only comes a year before the iPhone becomes like mildly ubiquitous. I mean, Anna, you talked about how you got the first iPhone a year later, or that year, right? Because around 2006.
No, the first iPhone did come out to 2008, right?
It was 2008 or 2007. I can't remember, but
or 2007. 2007.
So yeah, so it does change after that, because like the idea of what the cell phone can do like just goes into like hyperdrive. And I mean, I don't think anyone was able to. I mean, I
had a BlackBerry before I had that, but like it's so like not original. Like his bandmates like call it a Crackberry.
Well,
like, yeah, everybody called it a Crackberry. You know?
Well, hey, King's the kind of guy who still tweets stuff like, "Hey, Whole Foods, how about whole paycheck, huh?" Which I love.
Right, he's a dad.
I love
it's
that
a
about
dad
him.
joke thing.
Yeah, but no, I think Mike, I feel like what you were about to say was, like, we kind of all, like, how long can you resist it in this culture? Yeah. And that, I think, is really important to the hook, I think, to some degree, but we'll get there. So last quote here on why he doesn't own a cell phone. This is where he goes off, and I love it. And I think he's got some good points here, but he's also a bit old man yells at cloud. He says, as for why I don't own one, to me, cell phones, pardon me, I know that I'm speaking on a podcast to a lot of people who own cell phones, but to me, a cell phone is like a slave bracelet, okay? Basically, once you have one, anybody who wants you can reach out and grab you by the neck. I can remember as a child what a teacher used to do when he or she was angry with you, was to grab you by the ear and drag you to the front of the room or out in the hall. And that's what a cell phone does. When it rings, it grabs you by the ear and turns you into its creature. And I don't like that. I don't like beepers. I don't like cell phones. I don't like Blackberries. I don't like anything that puts me in a position of being somebody's beck and call. When I think of cell phones, I think of those tracker gadgets that prosecutors put on flight risks who are out on bail from high-profile criminal proceedings. So I just don't like them. And I don't think, frankly, that they're a gadget that has much practical use once you get outside the emergency services like fire, police emergency response. They're a commodity. That's basically a created necessity. Let's leave it at that. And so I do think like that whole notion of it grabs you by the neck, I think that is so fucking true. And it does really distinguish between the way we used to work and the way we work now. I'm not being monolithic in this, but he's obviously so wrong when it comes to like the idea about emergency services, right? Because like I feel like iPhones have gone so far in terms of even just something like maps, right? It like people don't get lost. You know what I mean? Like you can find your way home if you get lost with something like that. And so it's really interesting to read these comments like all these years later, now that they've become so ubiquitous. But, you know, when I think a lot about like the idea of work, that is the thing about having a phone on you at all times is like somebody can always fucking ping you. And like, I think Mike and I'm sure all four of us understand like what it's like to see that notification on your phone and be like, fuck, there goes my day. You know what I mean?
That's why you got to turn your notifications off.
Doesn't even matter though, especially if you're, I mean, look, I ran a publication for 15 years and it's like, you know, that like, it's going to be on your shoulders. And
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, that's the first thing I thought of when I read that quote, or like when we were doing the research, Randall. It's just that, I mean, he's not wrong when you think about what it would do later on. And it's not even just my day is ruined. It's just that it's people that are going to take advantage of it. I mean, look at the pandemic. Like, so many people we already knew that you were pretty much reachable anytime, right? Because you have your cell phone. But what the pandemic did, especially for those in the media and those that had to work with partners and whatnot, is that, like, not only are you available on your cell phone and with your laptop, but now you have nowhere to go, and we're going to get you any moment of the day. And so it just made that contraption that we call this iPhone, this fun thing, the iPhone, became this, like he's saying, oh, it's so much fun. Oh, I love my iPhone, and I can't wait to get the second update in 2 years. But it did become what he's calling here, and like, it does feel like that sometimes, and like, but there's no, it's like there's no like escaping it. That's just
I didn't get an iPhone until 2012, but that was mainly just because I was broke. And I had a
loser.
I know, I had a fucking flip phone. Like, everyone else had an iPhone, and I had that. But then it just ended up like, but then you hit a point where you're like, society is leaving me behind. And so, and that's something. I want to talk about.
You can't not have one, like, who has a landline anymore, and there's I feel like, oh, you don't have one?
No, I was going to say, my phone got stolen. Mike knows this, like, about a month and a half ago. And there were things at work I couldn't do because they needed me to confirm, like, with what is it, like, authenticators. They needed me to have some kind of mobile device, and I don't have an iPad. My wife and I don't have an iPad. So it's like, I couldn't log into certain things. Like, they literally just said, well, you're out of luck until you get a new phone. Like, and I was like, yeah, and that to me was so wild because you don't realize how reliant you are.
But that's interesting too, because I feel like in like the time that we're talking about with this book, like, they were still used to talk on the phone, and like, I don't ever talk on the phone if I can avoid it now. Like, my phone doesn't ring, so I feel like I don't know. There was just like a fundamental shift in the way that we used these phones too, and I think it was when like texting came along and when we started like looking more than listening, like, nobody picks their phone up and puts it to their ear anymore. Like, this book, it feels like in some ways it feels very like prescient right now, but it also feels really dated in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, because it's like the last gasp of a different era of phones, right? Is like what this book chronicles.
Yeah, when we actually talked on phones, because like we call it a phone now, but that's not how we use it anymore.
When we actually spoke to each other. That's what you mean. When we actually communicate. In some ways I think it's turned out scarier than
I know. I joked
for
with Mike
better
about that.
thought it would be.
And
I
was like, it's actually worse
how long
now.
we are going to call them phones. Like, I mean, it's always kind of funny to me, and it's a little bit of a dad joke, I guess, when people are like, that computer in your pocket. But that is what it is. And there's some non-legend, but I can't remember the specifics about it, but Apple didn't see it coming. Like, they thought the phone was going to be used. They saw it as, I think they understood the music capability because, they had the iPod as well. But I think that they didn't see texting as being like the thing.
I feel like they sold it. A big selling point was the music aspect. I know that was a big selling point for me because I had like an MP3 player that was separate, and I remember that was like the nicest thing was being able to have Spotify on my phone.
But you're right on it, because like they think about what was the next evolution after this. They really tried to push hard for the iPad, which did work in a way. It did, but it didn't work to in the way that they thought it was going to be, because what they thought the iPad was going to do is just absolutely erase any laptops, any of that. And then on top of that, they thought that the watch, they thought that was the next step as well. Granted, a lot of these ideas were post jobs, but there's a lot.
You're looking at someone who actually, I'm recording on an iPad. I have an Apple Watch. I have my phone over here. I have.
Where's your Google Glass, Anna?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm just like an Apple stan.
Oh no,
same.
I fan too. Yeah.
Like,
except for all the dongles, like, get one dongle out.
I hate the.
I just wish,
dongles.
I wish they would just switch everything to USB. Like, USB-C. I always get those mixed up.
Mike, do you want to talk about the mobile campaign promotion that they did with the release of this book?
Yeah, this is so 2006 too. So basically, I didn't realize this until we really started doing research. So I don't remember this, but it certainly feels something that would have happened in January of 2006. So they basically had this text ad that. And they had a whole story in the Wall Street Journal, and you could tell, like, Simon Schuster and Scribner were probably like, oh yeah, we're at the head of the curve here. And so what they had was that all these cell phone subscribers are going to be receiving like texts that are going to say like, the next call you take may be your last. Join the Stephen King VIP fan or VIP club at www.sellthebook.com. And so like each of the recipients would, agree to receive these promotional messages. And most of them that were receiving it were like through, 18 to 54 demographic, which Scribner, I guess, had really done a lot of research and legwork ahead of time. And the idea of the VIP club was going to be that you're going to have trivia contests, polls, and sweepstakes. And you'd also get this audio message via your cell phone from Mr. King on January 24th when it came out. And he'd say, hear the backstory on my novel Cell. Visit sellthebook.com to play my exclusive audio clip. And so, you could get a chance to buy wallpapers for $1.99, which seems a lot for just a digital wallpaper. But at the time, I'm sure people were doing that. And then you could also get a ringtone that would have, and they say in the article, Mr. King would say, beware, the next call you take may be your last. And then the other one would be him saying, it's okay, it's a normie calling.
Imagine how annoying that would be after.
Oh, it'd be so ridiculous.
Oh my God.
So this reminded me of like the time when I used to rewire my computers to replace all the sound effects with like favorites quotes from like 90s movies. So anytime there was an error on my computer, it'd be like, holy shnikes or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like, and then it would be like Wayne going like, whoa, like stuff like that. And it got so annoying after like 2 days. I'd be like, I can't do this. And then I had to redo it all again and find the sounds.
One of my friends growing up, whenever he got mail, it would be his own voice and it would ping and it would go porn mail because he was just getting spam all the time. And but it was constant and he never turned it off. So anyways.
Well, they wanted to broaden the campaign. And so between January 19th and then January 21st, they were going to be promoting the VIP club on an ad on Yahoo. So they were and this is when they were going to talk about the advertising and promoting the podcast that we already read from. So that was a big part of this promotion as well. So they really were trying to do this 360 deal marketing wise, that was going to be all digital. And my favorite thing is that in the interview, like when they're interviewing King for this like Wall Street Journal article, he's still dour about the cell phones.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you've got one, it becomes addictive. People could always find you. And then
People
it's
can
just
always find you.
Yeah, and so originally his idea was that he wanted to do one that said, don't answer it, and then Scribner was like, no, we're not going to do that.
That's
and so they
so
rejected
funny.
it. But yeah.
That's what
love
you
that.
do when it's a guy you don't want to talk to anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not an
right?
answer.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
VIP club, they should have called them cellmates.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice. Well, every
I
time you
should-
say sell the book, I keep thinking, is that sell with a C or an S?
Well, it's funny because I ran the podcast through Otter, which is a transcription service, and it just kept doing sell as SELL.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, all right, it makes
sell.
sense.
You also have,
Solitary.
yeah, Mike, you also have a quote here from Grady Hendrix's great
Oh,
his tour rereads. His Cell one's great, highly recommended. And he wrote, they printed 1.1 million copies, and to promote it, they got Next Tones to send texts asking people to join the VIP club, so on and so forth. We already read some of that. So the result, though, was the parent company Simon & Schuster got sued for unsolicited telephone advertising in the Satterfield versus Simon & Schuster to the tune of $175 per plaintiff, or $10 million total. With a price tag like that, good thing Cell is one hell of a 9/11 novel. So it's very funny that basically, if you got a
like a
text from
Simpsons
Stephen
joke
King,
at that point.
you also got $175, which hey, is pretty good. It's like Facebook money these days.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about some of the reviews?
Sure.
Why don't you kick off with this Janet Maslin one?
Yeah, I just have like some quotes from it because most of these reviews were actually summations of the story. But what they got into the actual critiques. So here's a few quotes from Janet Maslin. Once the pyrotechnics of the pulse are over and the exodus from Boston begins, much of Cell is a literal trudge. She also writes, the Cell from Hell premise gives this story an instantly powerful hook, but there are times when the book threatens to become all hook and no fish. Though Cell is not unduly long, it moves slowly and somewhat repetitively along its highway of horrors, and Mr. King is in no hurry to build upon the Pulse idea after he has deployed its initial shock value. Don't know if I agree with that one, actually. But then the next quote is, Cell displays the author's habit of beginning with a real-world idea and following it into a hazy dreamscape, only to reemerge from the vortex when his cautionary tale is over. In that sense, and in the visceral impact of its descriptions, out comes an old man's eye with a loose, gobbly plopping sound. This is a traditional King narrative studded with alarming signs of the times. So pretty good.
Yeah. Read this Iskoff review. I'm like, this is a weird one.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because he kind of has this real big obsession with King having death wishes on paper. So like, that's like his whole review is just talking about like, isn't it weird that he hates this, is going after this. So anyway, one quote from David, is it Itzkoff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
They say it pays to steer clear of one's heroes, and after reading Cell, I can honestly admit I am scared as hell about the prospect of ever crossing paths with Stephen King, because if King regards his actual human beings the same way he thinks about the characters in his latest novel, his passion for enforcing rules of etiquette would most likely place him somewhere on the spectrum between Emily Post and Vlad the Impaler. When King sets his own id loose on the page, the results can be as startling as any of the intentionally scary moments. It's funny to see him include little pot shots at Tom Clancy or shout outs to William Gibson and Neil Stephenson. But what is a reader supposed to make of lines like, give a nice little gay guy from Malden a room full of guns to play with? He starts to say, yo, like, just like Sylvester Stallone. It's a little, it was a very scattershot review. So finding quotes from that was very hard, because at most times he was basically just talking about how, he has fun with the violence on the paper in a weird way. I don't know. It was an odd review, to say the least. So,
yeah. This from the Grady Hendrix reread. I like this quote you pulled here, and I think it touches on some of the stuff we're going to talk about as well. So it says, marinated in the new horror language of 9/11 and the Iraq War, Cell depicts an existential clash of civilizations. There are cell phone detonators and truck bombs, descriptions of bomb blast victims blown out of their shoes that feel transcribed right off CNN. Osama bin Laden and Guantanamo Bay are invoked, and a kid they meet is described as ardent as any Muslim teenager who ever strapped on a suicide belt stuffed with explosives. You can tell he was mainlining CNN around this time.
Yeah.
But this isn't just trendy window dressing. Whether he knows it or not, King is writing about the world of the 2000s when random violence revealed seemingly unbreakable traditions and institutions as weak and ineffectual. With its recycled ideas and its small-scale quest, there's something exhausted about Cell, but that fits with the horrifying picture King paints of a tired, dusty, moribund world becoming the battleground between two bloodthirsty visions of the future that will accept no compromise, each dedicated to the total extinction of the other. It's a war that leaves the schools, museums, fairgrounds, governments, hospitals, companies, and restaurants we've spent hundreds of years carefully constructing as nothing more than bloody rubble, ground beneath the feet of the new combatants in this endless war. Yeah, so I find that an interesting review because it really leans into, and I think that's kind of what, and I wonder if, because we have these New York Times reviews, I wonder if in any of the other like current reviews that we didn't have access to, if they talked about the war and 9/11 and all that stuff, or if that was something that maybe became clearer 10 years later or whatever, like when Grady wrote his review, because his whole thing is kind of about, this is a post 9/11, post Iraq war book, which I think is relevant. I don't think it's the whole thing, but I do think it's, you can see the impact on it.
Oh, definitely.
More so, I think in sort of the violence. Whereas like I think about Buick 8, which we talked about, was a book that seemed very much about nihilistic attitudes post 9/11 and just general nihilism and confrontation with death. Whereas this one is more of a visceral response. It's more violent because, like, Buick 8's gross, but it's not really violent. It's more of a cerebral kind of book. This one is a lot more like on the ground war zone kind of book.
Yeah, but one of the things that makes it kind of odd and I think unsatisfying is that there is no, it's not even that the phone crazies are pointless. It's just like they're only there for a bit. Like it's, you know what it is? It's the War of the Worlds problem. I've never liked the ending of War of the Worlds, right? Like, oh, it's our own cold, virus that kills them. It's just kind of like, oh, so we didn't have to actually fight them. We could have just kind of like run and hid. And then
I have some thoughts
everything
about
would be
this.
okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what sort of winds up being here too, right? Like if we didn't just stay alive long enough, then they're going to peter out.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, it sort of defangs the threat.
Right.
A little.
I totally understand that. And I have some thoughts on the hook. We can maybe start with that when we get there.
Right.
But before that, we got like,
which just makes it, sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Which makes it not map well onto terrorism.
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
Well,
like, what is, because there's no ideology. The phone crazies have no ideology.
Right. I totally agree.
Or reason to exist. Like,
yeah,
they just,
I feel like it's more born from images he saw in the news, right? It's like stuff he's seeing on the news. He's not engaging with it, I think, on an intellectual level, but more of like, I feel like
there's a lot of violence. There's a lot of violence out there. I can't stop wanting to do King.
Just go watch, interviews for
Tabby,
Wild at Heart,
and
yeah, I think it's I think that's a really good point, Anna, and I think we'll touch on that more. But I think it's him sort of reacting to, like I said, his mainlining, CNN or MSNBC or whatever, like just being confronted with a lot of this stuff. And, you think about Abu Ghraib too, and like how prevalent those images were. And just this like, this kind of like rubbing your face in violence kind of every time you turned on the TV. And movies were very violent at that time too, which is, this was the height of Hostel and Saw being like the biggest horror movies. So I think that, it was kind of on his mind. Let's jump to the hook in our next section, which is called The Hook.
Ah, yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
Here in The Hook, we talk about themes, ideas. What is this book trying to say? There's a lot here, and I think I want to start with what we were just talking about, Anna, which is, I think there's a couple different ways to approach it, but I'll just say that the way I was viewing this book when I first watched it, or first read it, the first 2/3 or so, I was like, well, this is a book about machine taking over man, like overtaking man. The first 2/3 seem very much to be about like making man so afraid and reliant on technology, i.e. the cell phone, that in the end, like, they more or less ostracize those who dare to resist the digital age. Like we see Clay, Tom, and Alice made into pariahs, not just by, the phone crazies, but by the other normies, because they, tried to fight back against this digital quote unquote revolution. But then we see people like willingly take the call, right? Like they take the phone from the crazies when they go up to, go north or wherever, these like weird camps that the phone crazies set up. And they willingly do it because the world has been made inhospitable to them. If they don't, like, that is the only way towards re-entering back into society, is by taking that call and entering and like giving into your reservations about technology. But then I feel like, and this is what you were getting at, Anna, which is he kind of like wimps out a little bit on it in the end. And suddenly it's like, oh, well, the phone crazies weren't long for this world anyways, because all technology is inherently flawed to some degree. There's a worm in there. It's eating away at it. There's already a virus. They were born with the virus, right? And that to me is oh, go ahead, Anna.
I was gonna say he really loves like his sort of I think of it as like 1980s era ways of talking about computers, like garbage in, garbage out. Have you ever heard of garbage in, garbage out? Have you ever heard of viruses? Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like 2006 people are pretty like,
sure,
they're not sophisticated, but more sophisticated than he sounds.
Well,
and I agree. I agree that what he seems to be saying is that, yeah, technology, human spirit, like, will win out, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
I think what stands out to me is I do think there's precedent for this. I agree. I found it kind of underwhelming. But the thing is, and I think that's just the way the story's told. I think it does track with King in the sense that his bad guys are almost always undone by sort of their own hubris or their own inefficiency or their own selfishness, their own consumption. In this case, it's like the institutions are always flawed. Like the antagonistic institutions in King books are always flawed, and that's what brings them down. So to me, it's like I can see that continuing from his previous work. And then, of course, it also made me think about Dark Tower, which is, you know, the embrace of machines over magic in that story, and the subsequent failure of the machines was what helped bring about the brokenness of Midworld. Here, it's more optimistic. It's kind of like, oh, even if we do become overrun by technology, in the end, humanity will still outlive it because technology is inherently flawed, right? So I feel like that's what he's getting at.
Yeah, and I think he's getting at something that is, to me, an idea that is starting to be called into question at a very high level, which is this idea that there's no computer that can be invented that's as like complex and sophisticated and is full of redundancies in a good way as the human brain, right? Mm-hmm. I think people are starting to think maybe that's not the case.
Well, I think I think that leads into the next point I wanted to discuss with the hook, which is I think sort of we talk about the power, the power of humanity and that, but I think there's also a real bleak view of human nature in this. I mean, he begins the book, like the quotes he begins the book with, which I found telling, was Sigmund Freud: "The id will not stand for a delay in gratification. It always feels the tension of the unfulfilled urge," which makes me think, obviously, about our relationship with cell phones, especially nowadays. And then he has a quote from Konrad Lorenz that says, "Human aggression is instinctual. Humans have not evolved any ritualized aggression-inhibiting mechanisms to ensure the survival of the species. For this reason, man is considered a very dangerous animal." And that made me think about, what Jordan and the Head talk about, which is the brain is a hard drive. And that's what you were mentioning, this idea of that we are programmed by our environment, quote unquote, organic circuitry. And when you ask what happens when that's wiped, the Head has this quote. Hold on, I want to read it because it made me laugh, but I think it's such a bleak view of humanity, but also interesting, which is that and they're talking about psychology and Freud. In Freud's vocabulary, the idea of survival as the prime directive is expressed by the concept of the id. In Jung's, by the rather grander idea of blood consciousness. Neither man, I think, would argue with the idea that if all conscious thought, all memory, all ratiosynthetic ability were to be stripped from a human mind in a moment, what would remain would be pure and terrible.
That's such bullshit, though.
Well, that's, I think, the central thesis that he's getting at here, which is because then I go back to that quote that he had earlier, which was, he's talking about one of the reasons that technology makes me uneasy is because I believe our ability to build gadgets like cell phones, their ability to take pictures, text, all this other stuff. He talks about it outraces our moral compass and our ability to control our bad habits. It's a very bleak, he doesn't feel like humans can control themselves when they have something that has all these possibilities in them. And I find, and then he kind of lays in that that's where his distrust lies. And then and then he has that quote near the end, page 439 of my edition, where the cynicism sort of emerges again, even richer, where Clay basically is his last thought before sleep took him was that maybe in the long run, the phoners would have been better. Yes, they had been born in violence and in horror, but birth was usually difficult, often violent, and sometimes horrible. Once they had begun flocking and mind melding, the violence had subsided. So far as he knew, they hadn't actually made war on the normies, unless one considered forcible conversion an act of war. The reprisals following the destruction of their flocks had been gruesome but perfectly understandable. If left alone, they might eventually have turned out to be better custodians of the earth than the so-called normies. They certainly wouldn't have been falling all over themselves to buy gas-guzzling SUVs, not with their levitation skills, or with their rather primitive consumer appetites for that matter. Hell, even their taste in music had been improving at the end. But that to me, it's just you can see where he is King basically believes a reboot of the world was necessary, in this sense. Mike, what were you going to say?
But it's not even exactly new because and this is coming off of, because look, I just spent last month obsessively digging into Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978. And one of the big takes that a lot of people have with that movie is that what's so great about the remake of that Philip Kaufman did is that he's fairly non-committal on either side. He makes a pretty quasi-objective approach to how he looks at what the invasion actually represents. And there's a lot of argument to be said that, yeah, the pod people are pretty good because they take a lot of the heat, they take a lot of the hate, and they take a lot of the fear, and they take a lot of the emotions that cause like racism and cause like anger and cause like war out of the picture. And that's certainly something that King's getting at here. And that made me think, well, this essentially is just King doing his own I Am Legend. And because that's essentially the I Am Legend theme at the end, is that, you know, and there's literally a quote in this story in which they go, is there any of us left? For the most part, there's one of the quotes in there. I just can't find it at the moment. But he said, you know, and that's coming off from the fact that that's essentially the ending of the book, is that like he's the monster, you know, at the end, they're the ones that you know, the last person on earth ends up being the beast that you're supposed to fear. And you know, that's kind of the realization that they make when what happens at Gaiten Academy. And really, when you think about it, the I Am Legend story and also the Body Snatcher story, I mean, the evolution of those two narratives, I mean, they all stem for the most part from what H.G. Wells was doing with War of the Worlds, as well as using this invasion to be able to comment on what was happening with society. So, you know, King saying, oh, I was excited for Spielberg's War of the Worlds makes sense, but it also makes sense in the fact that, I mean, look, what have we learned for the last 6 or 7 years doing this podcast? Like Richard Matheson is like one of the most instrumental like authors like for him growing up. And when you think about where was King at when he was coming up with, you know, when he was, you know, cutting his teeth, for lack of an idiom here, with science fiction, he's coming out through the 50s, you know, in the 60s, and that in the 50s and the 60s, do you know how many fucking body snatchers stories there were? There were The Day of the Triffids from 1951. There was The Puppet Masters, 1951. There's It Came from Outer Space, 1953. The Father Thing, which is a story by Philip K. Dick. They all are these. I mean, because Robert Heinlein's also, The Puppet Masters is also its own invasion story in a way too. So I mean, it's just, they all have that sort of commentary to be able to say something about the current world that should or needed to be said. And with the 50s, obviously the Cold War. With Kaufman's, it's definitely the counterculture with what's happening after the flower boom, after Vietnam. With this, it would make sense that King would kind of lean onto these texts that were easy mediums to comment on the society, because that in 2006, it was a pretty fucking important time to comment about things. I mean, 9/11 obviously happened. You have Katrina that's happening. You have the Iraq War, all of things that he pretty much hints and insinuates in this text. So that's kind of where I get where he's coming at here, is that, yes, he's taking these themes and what you're talking about, Randall and Anna, but I think that for me, he's running it through these mediums that we've seen in the past. I mean, you know, to obviously to mixed results depending on who are you talking to on this podcast. Sure. But I think that's kind of where his headset is at with that. So anyway, sorry for that.
What do you think, Anna?
Well, I was thinking, you know, like we all love the punk rock, and like there's one of the things that's great, and I think of Stephen King is right, kind of like what can be great about him, and I'm getting somewhere, is the copy of the copy of the copy. Yeah. Like with all of its flaws, when you start to build in the flaws of the copy of the copy of the copy, you know, like you get the Ramones. Mm-hmm. And that can work for Stephen King a lot of time in pastiche kinds of ways. And he's just like playing a new and kind of like grungy version of old stories. Here it just doesn't work. I think one of the reasons it doesn't work is that he isn't really like, yes, you can use the body snatcher trope, and you can use technology gone awry tropes like you Frankenstein, you know, or whatever, to comment, but you can also just be like, what if phones turned you into something weird? Like I just feel like there's no there for him. Like we were saying before, like I think the description of him, like I bet he is a CNN viewer, by the way. I see him as being like a huge Jake Tapper fan. And he mentions Anderson Cooper, I feel like, a lot in his novels too.
Yeah, he does.
So I can see him like I can see him like watching a lot of CNN and like having this sort of random idea about phones. And not just sometimes I don't think he's thinking about it, and he still says brilliant stuff because it's the copy of the copy of the copy. It's like all that remixing just winds up making magic on the page. And then sometimes your copier gets jammed, I guess. Like sometimes
a lot of these ideas, these ideas about like them being better stewards of the earth and stuff. These, like you said, these are themes King has been riffing on since The Stand. You know, like The Stand. A lot of the stuff that's in this are the same questions he was posing in The Stand. He's just found this different way to explore them, which is through technology.
And has less interesting characters.
Exactly, which we're going to talk about. Yeah, and
a section we call, sorry.
It's not waiting for people to come pick them up someday. It's like there's an alternative right now that is going to pick them up, so we can compare ourselves to them now. And I think the issue I see is there's just so many ideas going on at once because like when I step back from this book, the first thing I think about it as a zombie book because it reminds me of like, you know, getting trapped in a mall with the consumerism element. But the problem is like he's just such an empathetic writer that he can't not personify his villains, you know, so they can't just be mindless zombies that just like go rast and eat each other. Like they have to evolve into something. And I don't think that's bad. I just think he's trying to this is the problem with just trying to write a monster is that there are like 4 different competing things. There's the I Am Legend thing. Maybe this is the end of society as we know it, and it's like merging into something better. And I also want to say when we're talking about I Am Legend, we're specifically talking about the book ending because the movie ending is very different.
Yes, so. Which, by the way, they're now going back to because they want to sequelize it because they're idiots and went with the ending that we saw in theaters in 2007. But yeah.
Well, and then there's the other idea like of like some guy just like rigging up the system in his basement. So there's like this radicalization kind of nonsense like idea that just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning and we can't escape from it. And then there's the terrorism thing. So it's like it's all this one big mashup, and it feels like a choose your own adventure kind of villain that nothing really quite works out in a satisfying way. And I say that as somebody who really enjoyed reading this again, but it's like I just can't ever quite get my hands on what I'm supposed to think about these phone crazies, you know?
And I think that's what's so frustrating for a lot of people when I talk to people who don't like this book, which is most King fans. Like I've not found many Cell defenders, and I think it's because they also want it to be a zombie book, you know, like, and they get frustrated by the pivot where it's kind of like, oh no, it's going to be a lot more complex. And I think with the simplicity of the premise, the promise of the first 50, 60 pages, they want it to be a more clean cut man versus creature story, but King can't. Go ahead, Anna.
He chickens out on one of the things that's supposed to be the hook, right? Which is that if you strip the human brain bare, you're going to wind up with something horrible.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, is not just true. And if it is true, the phone crazies are a bad example because they're not doing human instincts. One thing, they don't fuck, right? Like they're just
not
they
that we
eat
see.
that we eat, and I think King would show us.
He would show us.
Yeah. Come on. He would show us.
Could you imagine
if they were fucking, we would see it.
They're like, oh, Tom, in your garden, there's like 2 people fucking and eating a pumpkin.
He totally would show us if they were doing that. So like their base instincts are just food and killing, right? Which is not what if all humans did was eat and kill, wouldn't last very long, right?
Yeah.
And so their mode of reproduction is to is to have people listen to the phone. It's going to run out at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's another reason why it feels disappointing, right? Is because eventually there'd be terrible stewards of the earth because they're all good. Well, there could be great stewards of the earth because eventually they're all going to die because they're not fucking.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like comparing like 28 Days Later kind of zombies with I Am Legend, you know, is this like a thinking species that is evolving, or is this just a monstrous species that is going to die out? And I feel like we just don't, like, he kind of tries to have it both ways.
He does. Yeah. I mean, it's funny that I initially said I hated this book in 2006 because what you're saying, Randall and Anna, is that like I did want it to be a zombie book because in 2006, if you recall, this is before Walking Dead and this is before we had like thousands of zombie movies that are out there. And
it was kind of a zombie lull.
And I love
saying Stephen King inspired the zombie songs.
He was certainly ahead of the curve in some respects when you think about it. But like now it's 2023 3. Yep, that's the year, Mike. And I'm like exhausted by it. Like, and I need something new. I need a curve. I mean, that's kind of why I love, The Last of Us. And in addition to like, playing the game and loving the game, I like the science behind it. And I like that they kind of go into it with the fungus and all. With this, it's like, I think one of the reasons why I probably liked it again and rereading it was that like, oh, it wasn't just the zombie thing, even though I think it would probably work better as a book if it was. But it's just like, even just seeing the evolution of things, even though I hate the fucking Raggedy Man, I think he's an annoying, stupid character, and we'll get into that. But I do like the concepts that are being discussed, because it's at least different than like, oh, Carl, we got to get to the the gas station and save.
There's a zombie in a well.
Lydia from whatever. We've done that a million times. So yeah,
it was nice to read something a little bit different.
I'm just saying that's maybe why I liked it, like this read a little bit more. I'm not saying it works, but I'm just saying like, oh, well, at least it was a curve.
I think
I
there's
hate it. I want to be clear. I didn't hate it.
Oh, yeah,
it's just like it is like I was sort of like, Steve.
Yeah.
But
are we going to have a teacher? Oh,
right.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But like, I didn't like
Glenn
it the first
Bateman,
time. But once I knew what the ending was going to be, and I knew we weren't really going to get it wasn't going to be a straight zombie movie or book, and it wasn't going to give me like this big, it wasn't going to give me what I wanted. Like, I was able to really just appreciate a lot of the writing and the story and like see a lot of the trees, and so I think that's why I enjoyed it more, is because I had already accepted that it wasn't going to be exactly what I was imagining, which I found is the case for a lot of the rereads. Like, that's how I felt about Colorado Kid. That's how I felt about, oh gosh, there was another one that I just really hated the first time. And I was like,
Lacey's Story.
No, this is good. Lacey's Story. That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's why you need to go back to
you
the
end
Dead
up
Zone.
I know.
liking that.
I'm going to.
So a couple other small things I think to highlight. I guess like, Mike, you had pointed out some stuff too, like stuff that just feels kind of directly influenced by, terrorism, post 9/11, post Katrina. I mean, we don't need to dig into all that stuff because we've already talked about it a bit. But like, like something I noticed that felt very specific was that kind of scene with the older woman who was like an evangelizer, and Clay punches her in the face. And
it's King's greatest hits.
Yep.
I mean,
it really is. Yeah.
But I can see why you brought it back in a way, because it's like, this was post 9/11, like evangelicalism was at its height. Like it was almost overtaking politics. I mean, obviously you had George W. Bush, and people were using things like 9/11 and Katrina as, a cudgel to help get people saved. And there's, obviously a deep cynicism in that. And you can see King reacting to that, I think. So I don't know, when I read that, it makes sense to me for the time, because I think that was very predominant in culture at the time, was evangelical culture as, and, kind of weaponizing Christianity in a lot of ways, especially in the wake of tragedy. And so, so there's that. And then I think there's, obviously several others, and just the idea of like Tom at one point says nothing to be done about, when they think out, like basically when Alice kind of disappears from the hotel and they think that they can't save her, there is this kind of resigned nature of nothing to be done, which to me is, I think was a kind of a way that a lot of people felt in the wake of all this violence, was like, what can we even do? It's a helplessness,
There was like some weird, interesting moments that made me go, oh yes, 2006. I'm not going to go too far because I don't want us to get the 1-star reviews and a million things, but there's, on like, early on, it's like, it has like this love for the cop, and like, a sentiment that certainly has, evolved since then. And then also just the idea that the systems that we have in place really do fail us. And I think that certainly stems from everything that happened after Katrina, with at one point, the whole joke about FEMA at one point, at the end, it's like, oh, fucking FEMA. That felt so, like, I remember that because it was like one of those things where, and I always watch my dad, like I remember one time when we were in a car and it was like the fucking Seinfeld Desperado. He like heard a song and he was like, oh man, 68. I remember hearing this and I was like, where is he going? And I was like, Dad, the road. But in this case, I was like, when I heard the FEMA joke, I was like, oh man. I was like thinking about all the jokes that were on the Daily Show, or all the jokes that were happening on like South Park and all these things. And it's like, I absolutely forgot about it. And it was like one of those like, it's certainly changed because we've kind of gotten, I guess maybe we've gotten better in that.
Well,
way.
now we wish government was more competent.
Yes.
There were FEMA camps.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, the other thing that I think...
FEMA camps, where
go
have they
ahead.
gone?
Yeah. Seriously.
I think another thing that stands out related to what you're saying is how quickly the world falls apart. And that's something King kind of hammers home, is all this happens in less than 2 weeks. And, you know, that whole opening graph of the book that feels kind of unnecessary, but it's also kind of compelling about, you know, everywhere from New York to Moscow to everything was gone. And the stock market was dead, you know, and it's like, and yeah, I can see that idea of having such little faith in institutions and being like, oh yeah, the world, once this one thing happens, it'll be just dominoes and it'll happen so quickly. I think that was a sentiment that I think pervades to this day, to be honest. Jen, what were you going to say?
That also speaks to like our helplessness. Like if we start depending on cell phones so much, or like electricity, like we're gonna not be able to feed ourselves. We're not going to be able to communicate at all. We're not going to be able to do anything, which I mean, I think that's a justifiable fear, you know. Terminator 2 is a perfect movie for a reason. Like it explores a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
Hey, look, look, James Cameron was not that far off. I mean, have you seen this nightmare AI shit that's been going on? Like, you know, the
George
wild...
Costanza singing Let It Be.
They've already created like this rosacea woman that like is fucking terrifying and haunting like all this digital files and stuff.
Jen, that video is real. That's not
I know.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was deepfakes at first too. Anna, have you seen this video?
Unless that's what they want us to.
It's like it's
no,
like 12
I've
or 13
stayed out
years
of the
old.
whole like AI.
Well, I'll just say somebody dug up this video of people singing. Wait, what song is it? Let It Be? Yeah, it's Let It Be.
Let It Be.
And it's the most. It was some German thing, and so it just kind of like started going
God,
viral.
I've been obsessed with this as you said it.
It's the most random
Germans.
collection of celebrities you've ever seen, and it was so weird because it's like everyone from like Jason Alexander to Tanya Harding to like
Philip
Peter
Michael
Falk,
Thomas,
Malcolm Jamal
Philip
Warner,
Michael Thomas, Malcolm Jamal Warner. It's everyone, and it's such a random selection, and they're all singing "Let It Be." And I thought it was deep fakes at first, but it's absolutely
I did
real.
too.
So, anyways, should we move on to our next category, which is structure and format?
Look at me. Look at me, teacher.
Okay, not much to discuss here, I think. This is a straightforward book. He's not experimenting with prose necessarily. He's not, it's this third person classic King. The only thing that I think is notable is he kind of breaks it up by place by and large. I think like it's okay, like this is the section that takes place in this town. This is the section that takes place in this town. And then there's a couple that are, like the Pulse, which is the event that happens. What are you going to say, John?
The only thing I was going to say about this is the structure of this book is essentially The Stand.
It is, yeah.
Sadly, no meeting notes section, but I guess we could say that Cashwalk Nofo is going to sub in for our meeting notes maybe. But yeah, I mean, there's the big events on platforms. There's the ending where characters split off and try to decide what's next. And I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It doesn't feel like a ripoff of The Stand. It just feels very like segmented, like that story.
That's the way he knows how to tell his post-apocalyptic stories. Yeah.
Hey, it's my favorite book, so like it's.
I love The Stand.
That's not a knock. I do too.
Yeah,
he kind of kept it to like locations, though. I mean, kind of then he changed it like Worm. I'm like what? Like
Worm.
They're all locations. Before.
Wormville, Wormtown.
Yeah, it was in Wormville.
Stay with one theme. Like just stay the course. Maybe
I mean, there is Star
like,
Wormwood. Is that a location?
No, it's not in that. Then he has like a thing that's like it's like phone bingo, and then. What was the other one? It's like Roses or something like that.
Oh yeah, that was when Alice died.
It's like, wait a second, you had like there were just locations before this, so why are they all of a sudden anyway?
Yeah, I feel like he puts a lot more. I don't think he had really time to think about or elaborate on kind of a structure for this, just because
this was not like a particularly like well thought out and well planned or well edited piece of literature.
Yeah, it's
which
like
makes me wonder what it would be like if it had been like if he had put out.
There is something there is like good stuff in here.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I think if you give King a year, or I guess this pace he works, maybe 6 months, like
just
to work
let
on
it
this,
sit, let it breathe a little bit,
There's like I do as much as I want to mock like the tropa-rama of King, you know, that you get to see. It's like the wax museum of King tropes. I like the Head and Jordan. Like
they're my
it is
favorite.
a little bit different from what he's done in the past, you know, and I appreciate like I also I liked all the characters, actually. I'll say that. Like all of our little crew. I liked Alice. I'm very sad to see her go, although in a way I was like, all right, you know, like you killed a main character.
Yeah.
Big swing.
Way to go. Yeah.
It's
well, that's a good segue into our next section, which is called Heroes and Villains.
The cemetery. No, I'm just joking.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Here in Heroes and Villains, we talk about characters. So, like Anna was saying, we have a pretty tight crew here. So, and none of them are that deep. So I can't imagine we'll spend tons of time here. But yeah, I think Clay, we should start there. Clayton Riddell is our main character. He's a graphic novelist who just
not a writer. He's
not
a graphic.
It's like a writer, but just slightly different.
He's just scored a big deal, and then the world ends. What a bummer! It's kind of like Larry Underwood scoring a hit single, and then everything going under. No, I got to be honest. Did not enjoy Clay very much. I liked the majority of characters, but I think I was just really sour on him. Here's the thing: I don't need characters to mirror me in any. I don't need characters to be relatable. I don't need characters to be likable. I don't need them to have the same politics as me. What I need them to do is understand cats and why people love cats. And this motherfucker thinks Tom is pathetic and sad because he misses his cat.
Yes.
Sorry, you have kids. Like, I respect that, but you got to respect Tom, who misses his cat. I could never get back on board with him after that.
And you know, if it was a dog, if it was a fucking corgi.
Mm-hmm. Well, the dog would have come with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had that.
Been
think about what you would do with your cat if you had to travel at the end of the world.
I mean, as a newly minted cat person too, that I was really sad about that when he left Mr. Ray.
I mean, I have a little leash for Molly, but if I was going to go on a walkabout at the end of the world, would I try and tame this wild beast?
Yeah.
Or would I just be like, you know what? She always really liked Tom,
that. Was
so.
I'm not like I like the book, but and I was sad when Alice died, but when Tom left that cat, that was the most emotional I got in reading this book.
That was sad. Yeah,
that hurt me down to the core.
And we have to give this to King, which is that Tom does get the dignity. Tom gets it is believable that Tom is so upset, and
Absolutely.
and there's a sort of a weird difference between Clay thinking it's bullshit and King thinking it's bullshit, right?
Yeah. I very much, Clay was one of those characters where I just kind of assumed everything that was coming out of him was King. You know what I mean? Because he's
got a Ben Mears kind of quality to him.
He does, except I do think King writes Tom as an admirable character.
Oh, I agree.
And that when he leaves the cat, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, you have to love animals a little bit to even have a realistic portrayal of him saying goodbye to the cat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, do we have Clay defenders here, Jen?
Yeah, I mean.
He's all right.
I will say, like the opposite of this cat thing, I was like, do you really expect him not to go look for his son? Like, the amount of time they tried to convince him not to do this, like, even if it's a bad idea, you still got to go try to look for your kid, you know? It's like, do you really think he's not going to?
I just want my kids back.
I think I'm good. I think I honestly, I think all the I'm gonna be the worst dad. I'm just like if all this, you know, I'm having these fucking dreams.
Spoken like a dog person.
They're all coming true for the most part, and like pretty much the world's ending. I found some new friends. I don't know. I think I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm going to
see if he's normal though, and if he's not normal, then
See, the thing is, I would go to see.
That's horrible. I shouldn't.
And then if I saw that he had turned already, it's over. I'm leaving. It's like I'm not going to go try to mess with this group. We already burned down one group, and that fucked us over. So I'm out. I'm just. You get
a look at him from the distance. You're like, nah, he's not.
I'm
not
good.
The same.
I'm going to Cashwalk. No, not even Cashwalk. Nofo. I'm going to go to like I don't know Miami or something.
Cash Vegas.
Yeah.
Anna, you said you liked the characters. Thoughts on Clay?
I did. I on Clay. No, he was for a king cutout on the annoying side. Like I like Ben Mears better.
I called him annoying in my notes too.
Yeah.
I also felt like I understood why his wife would go with him.
Yeah, he's kind of an asshole, which isn't
But
a
he
bad
seems like,
thing.
I mean, as
Yeah.
someone who was just married to a guy who would be like, I can't fucking you believe you forgot your keys or whatever. Like, because remember, like, he's like, that'd be just like her to forget whatever. And I was like, oh, come on.
It's like Larry Underwood with Rita's sandals,
Yeah. Like to pick on someone for forgetting something, I feel like is one of the it's a low blow. Right?
We all
because
do it.
Forgetting things is a
Yeah.
fucking human thing.
Yes.
Right? And you have no control over what you forget. And
especially when you're under immense trauma,
To have like a partner tell you, how could you forget it? Like it's always like when you can't answer that question. Right? Anyway, so I didn't like that about Clay. I liked Alice. I liked Tom. I thought for a gay character, King was pretty restrained.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't always when he does his inclusivity writing.
Right.
And I also, like I said, and I liked the head in Jordan. I thought it wasn't too stereotypical. Like I liked that the scholarship kid was just really smart and like not a total dweeb, just a little like just 12 or 13, like I did feel like Alice's mental state really, although I liked her, the teenage girl's on the edge.
But Jordan got that way too.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
that's true.
I found that interesting. I just wanted him to kind of tease that a little bit more. Like I felt like he was like, "Oh, they're crazy, but then they're okay, and then they're crazy, and then they're okay." So yeah, Mike, what are you going to say?
But to be fair, I mean, all the teens have all the answers, which says a lot about like where he's talking about with youth.
The
and
kids are all right.
They are all right. But here's
when it comes to technology issues,
let's talk about when it's compares to the adults in the room, because I felt there were a lot of weird moments with a lot of the adults here. Like the way that Clay looks at Alice, I don't know if it's a paternalistic thing, but
could have done without that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like
she looked dreadfully
cute.
She looks more beautiful than ever.
Yeah, and then
like one where she,
and then he's like worried about her getting like gang raped. It's just like a lot of weird moments, and then also like the headmaster just like always stroking Jordan's head. I don't know. It's just like fucking weird. Maybe it's because I don't know.
He's from a different time.
But it's a lot of that stuff was very like, I was like, what the hell's going on here? And then at like one point, Tom's like, I think I'll sleep with her and blah, blah, blah. And it just was like, it just felt very infantilized in a lot of times in ways. And I thought that was odd. Like, I just thought it was an odd choice. I mean, maybe it's trying to say that like teens, they might have the answers, but when the apocalypse comes, they are going to like kind of subside. They're more like infant qualities because they're not ready for the world yet. Maybe that's what he was trying to get at. I just felt like there were a lot of moments where I kept wondering like, what age are these kids? And
it's just sloppy writing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's trying to get at anything. I think he occasionally forgot how old they both were.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when Danny Torrance talks like a 50-year-old in The Shining.
Well, no, he was drunk all that time, but and I also think that Danny's a special case, right? Because he's like channeling.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right.
Stuff. But I think he might have literally just forgotten. He was like writing so fast, like he forgot how old he made these two characters, because they do swing kind of wildly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the whole like, I will, if I need to, I'll sleep with her that Tom said, and I'm safe with her. I could have done without. Like, yeah, we all know.
Right.
Like, we got it.
Yes.
Like,
did they explicitly say that Tom is gay? Because I can't remember if I missed
it. It becomes explicit by the end.
Yeah.
No, well, he says I'm safe with her.
Okay.
That's what I
where
thought that
kind of first comes up.
And then there's Will and Grace jokes too.
Yeah, exactly. The Will and Grace jokes.
By the end
I felt like that was okay too. When he was like, you know what, like.
Oh yeah, like, and I think I liked Tom aside from Alice, who was my favorite.
Alice
I liked
is my favorite
Tom
too.
the best.
I like Tom too.
But what's interesting about Clay too is I think like as much as he did kind of bug me, he's just kind of like an everyman, just slightly more of an asshole, But like if you were in the end of the world or the apocalypse, like the odds that you're going to meet like a really good person or like a person that doesn't annoy you is probably low, like you're probably just gonna be stuck with the people.
Clay just
kind
so
of
why
fear,
why bother finding your kid, right? So because you lucked into this great family.
Clay was just kind of annoying because he just seemed to always be like a step ahead of everything. Like he was always having these major realizations that I felt like weren't really earned. Like it would just be like Clay suddenly would know something that nobody else knew, and I was like,
and then not tell them.
Yeah, and then I wouldn't even see the moment that alerted him. You know what I mean? It was just he suddenly knew, and like his whole plan for like getting guns and being so good at shooting guns and all this other stuff. It's kind of like he kind of skipped over the whole, like, these people don't know how to use assault weapons. And with Tom, there was that moment where he did try to shoot it and he fucked up, which I appreciated. But I felt like Alice and Clay and all them were like way too comfortable with guns, like right away. Because this is like a complete change. Like the whole world has changed, obviously, so I understand like the need to embrace that, but there was like kind of a comfortability with the weapons that happened so quickly that just felt a little bit like he just wanted to keep the story moving and not have to deal with that aspect of it, which is fine. I get it, but I think it's like Clay just seemed good at everything, and characters like that are kind of annoying.
And I think a lot of it is just that it doesn't quite feel earned. Right. I feel like just with a tighter edit or maybe 50 more pages of or one less character or one less person they meet in the street. Like, I feel like there is time to do that. It just is like, it kind of swings through a lot of characterization. And there are times when I got people mixed up, like especially when we meet our crew at the end, like Ray and there's another guy,
Dan.
I can't remember his, I don't know.
The crew that gets the 10, 15 pages of crew that we get at the end there. So I have some fun facts for some of this stuff. So Alice Maxwell, we need to get this out of the room.
Yes.
And this is something that came to mind when we were doing our Billy Summers episode, which, by the way, if you're thinking like, wait a second, I don't remember the Billy Summers episode. Well, you would if you were a member of our Patreon. So www.patreon.com/The Barons. You can listen to our Billy Summers episode. But why am I talking about Billy Summers? Well, in Billy Summers, there is a character named Alice Maxwell. And wouldn't you know it, Jen, when I texted you this, I said, I remember there being a baby shoe in that. But here's the thing. So here's the thing. And this is from Reddit. And Randall pulled this. Alex Maxwell is, and this is what, I'm just going to read what they say on Reddit instead of contextualize it. Sorry. Alice Maxwell is the name of the lead protagonist in both books. In Cell, she has a baby shoe she keeps on her at all times and uses it as a luck charm to cope with her anxiety. In Billy Summers, it's much the same, but it's Billy who has a baby shoe for the same reasons during his Marine days, which is interesting. So there was a baby shoe. It just wasn't Alice's in that. So the person that posted this on Reddit, and this is kind of the same speculation I had, is that they wondered if Alice is meant to be the case of the same character, different universe, kind of similar how the characters in Desperation and Regulators are essentially the same, but given different roles in a different setting. I think because Alice dies so young here, and she's clearly a little bit older in Billy Summers, I almost do wonder if like she is supposed to be like the same character, but in like obviously a different universe, because Cell is obviously going to be in its own contained universe, kind of like The Stand is, because yes, there are obviously King stories that do take place in the same universe. Like Billy Summers does take place in the same universe that The Shining does, as they mentioned in that, but it clearly doesn't take place in the same universe as The Stand, or in this case, Cell. So it is interesting to think like maybe Alice Maxwell is the same character in both books, and that's kind of a cool little connection there. I don't know, but
so my theory about that is that maybe he regrets killing her, and this was like a do-over, like letting someone, I don't want to spoil Billy Summers, but like letting her not have a horrific death like this. And I think like there's a death coming up in a book that we're going to read this year that is kind of similar. It falls at a similar place in the book. And I remember reading that particular death and like being so angry that I stopped reading the book for like 3 years. And I kind of feel the same way about this one. Like, I feel like it's unnecessary. Like, I wish it were somebody else that died. And so I wonder if like, if he had time to like really let this breathe, he would have killed somebody else, or who wouldn't have killed her. And so maybe it's like something that's been kind of kicking at him,
Well, one thing I will say, if we're going by the sort of zombie narrative, one of my biggest issues and yep, I'm going to confess, I watched all of Walking Dead, including last year with the series finale. And the thing that drove me nuts was that they already announced all the spinoffs, so there was no stakes anymore. It was just like, oh, okay, cool. All these fucking characters are going to live anyway. So if you're going by like and I don't really necessarily think a story has to have major deaths to be, impactful, but in this case of a survival story, Alice would be the most surprising death for me. Like when she does die, it is brutal, and it is like kind of like, okay, yeah, anything can go at this point. So like,
it's really grisly.
It's pretty fucking
that. Yeah, I appreciate it. But
it does suck because when she's gone, it's kind of like, fuck, great.
I couldn't stop thinking about The Stand. Essentially, what plays out between Gunner, her, and the Raggedy Man is what happens with Judge Ferris, Bobby Terry, and Randall Flagg in The Stand.
Yep.
They kill someone they shouldn't have killed, and then they are punished. And then Gunner's even crucified, like Randall Flagg did to people in The Stand. So I was kind of like, that's where I started to see the kind of shared DNA almost a little too aggressively, because I felt like I like that idea that they were supposed to not be touched, but it didn't really pay off because I don't know, I wasn't fully clear on what they intended to do, like why they needed to be alive once they got to Nashua or whatever, because we never get to the moment like in The Stand where they are actually chained to those machines.
To the swimming pool.
Right.
Yeah, like we never get to that part of it. So I'm not even sure King knew. And he kind of just was like, he did what he did with The Stand, which is he always talks about how he hit writer's block. And then he's like, well, I just got to blow some shit up. And that's what he did in The Stand. And I feel like that's kind of almost what he did here too. He's like, oh, I'm just going to blow it up. Yeah. So Anna, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think that the reason why it's not clear why they're supposed to be protected, like why they shouldn't have killed Alice. And I think that goes back to like the phone crazies having no ideology and having no point and no purpose. And not just it, I mean, literally, like it's never made clear, like why did they need these people in Nashua or Kanashua or whatever?
And that was the question that kept me.
What were they going to do with them? I literally, like what? They lock them in the barn,
put them on pedestals or something,
right?
Which is also like The Stand.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, and then why? Because like what? Because the phone people are not going to like change their. I mean, it is a very scary image, that insane thing. But then what? Like, what's the danger of having them around? The phone people are not convertible, right? Like you're not. Well, talk about the ending. But it's not like you have competing ideologies where you need to suppress the threat of new ideas coming in, which is kind of what Randall Flagg, like which they need to do in Las Vegas, right? Like they need to scare the shit out of people so they don't, go to Denver. Here, like, what would be the point of scaring the shit out of, like, what would, and also are the phone crazies like entertained? Are they
right? If they like Michael Bolton, they don't want to watch public executions. Those kinds of things don't.
I don't know,
exist in the same universe.
And also like they're not enjoying anything. They're not like they're eating terrible stuff. It's like what he has them eating is like everything from like raw food to like donuts to like whatever, pumpkins, and so it's their tastes are not very evolved. Like, what would they even enjoy looking at? Like, what is an entertainment to a phone crazy? Yeah. I know these are things that Stephen King did not think about at all.
Well, because that's, if I'm going back to the invasion, parallel, even when Donald Sutherland, spoiler alert for this 40-year-old movie, or 45-year-old movie, but even when Donald Sutherland, blows up the ship, they still just want to convert him. Yeah. They're not trying to make any example. They're not trying to do anything because they don't, like you're saying, they don't have they don't really have that sort of those emotions. They just want him over on their side. So you would think that they would have just forced them to
converted him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So it really doesn't make sense in that sense. Yeah.
And I think that because Alice's death was one of the things that I remembered before I started like thinking about this book again. And I remembered it just being like this really awful random death. And I think I like it better in that regard because we are like in this world now, we're in a lawless society and that kind of shit could just happen. And her death is really awful. And I think it's written pretty well as much as it upset me. I think I wish it had been Jordan that had died instead of Alice, you know? Not that I don't like Jordan. I just didn't want Alice to die.
No, he could have joined the headmaster and then he would have been happy.
I'd like the smaller child to die.
Yeah.
So I do have something on the ending, and this might actually kind of frame where we look at where he's going at thematically. Because the first thing I remember the ending from when I read it back in 2006, and I had been anticipating like, oh, this is gonna be exciting because now we have like 16 years of looking back on this, and clearly King he had to have commented on it, and he did. According to Reddit, on his website, so King used to like. Really frequent his own like message boards. This is before before Twitter. And so he actually commented because someone asked him about the ending. And on March 24th, 2006 at 12:41 p.m., he said, Cell spoiler. He said, based on the information given in the final third of Cell, I'm thinking about the reversion back toward the norm of the later phone crazies. It seems pretty obvious to me that things turned out well for Clay's son, Johnny. I don't need to tell you this, do I? And that's what he wrote. So, you know, King with his classic insinuation, how does that change your framing of where this, you know, thematically this might be if he does get Johnny back and it is his son? And this is maybe your theory at this point, Randall, that you want to talk about a little bit. I don't know.
My theory, like the way I read it, well, here's the thing. I knew as we got in the final pages that my theory was not true, but because King very clearly did believe that this was Johnny. My thing was, I was like, when he first found the kid, I'm like, that's not Johnny. That's not, you know, because it's absurd that he would find him anyways. Like he has no clue where he is. He guesses which direction to go when they leave the fairgrounds. And in my mind, I'm like, he just found a random kid. He pretended it was his son because he's lost his fucking mind. And that to me is, that's the more interesting ending to me because like, I want to see Clay changed, like after witnessing and dealing with all of this and being so singularly driven. It's kind of like, and then now you're at the end of the world. You know, your wife is dead, right? Like, I love that we only see her briefly. I actually really, I found that very unnerving that he just saw her as a zombie and she was right there. It's kind of like that moment in Night of the Living Dead when she sees her brother break through the door. It's a very simple moment that is very effective. But he couldn't live with the idea of not knowing what happened to his son. And so that to me is a more interesting ending. Do you think King obviously does not subscribe to that?
Do you think that Clay could possibly be having the power that Pete has from Dreamcatcher, in which he's able to, you know, figure out where things are based in? I'm just basing this on Timothy Olyphant. Yeah, exactly.
What if he just started calling Jordan Johnny and he killed everybody else and it was like,
I'm into that.
I
don't know. I got to be honest. Didn't love the ending, but through that lens,
It's Stephen King cheesy, extra cheesy.
It felt like there's an optimism in this book that I feel like is kind of unearned, you know, and that's what that's where I struggle. I think.
It's like, is this nihilistic or is this optimistic? And I feel like it is kind of at war between the two of those things.
Yeah.
And technology will save us. See, actually,
I couldn't wrap my brain around that. I'm like, that was weird. Was that the answer lied in the phone again?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, how does this? Doesn't that change? It makes it even more like, commingled, doesn't it?
Like I said, I feel like for the first 2/3, I knew exactly what this book was about. The last third, it feels like it all goes out the window because he's got to finish the fucking book, which I get. Like there was too much more story.
When's the last time that someone edited? I think I've asked this question before. The last time someone edited Stephen King. Like, when's the last time somebody was like... He'll tell
you they edit the shit out of him. I've read interviews, but I don't know if I believe
I would like to see the notes.
Well, I have...
Like,
you go ahead.
I can imagine that maybe they're like, maybe you shouldn't talk about the teenager's breasts so much. Like, that could be a note that I would see them giving him. But not, this doesn't make any sense, Steve.
I know one editor was Charles Adai, who is the head of Hard Case Crime. And interesting enough, is also the name of the headmaster here.
That's
so that was
fun.
a nice little nod.
I thought the headmaster was Glenn.
Yeah, well, he is.
Glenn 2.0?
He is. Ray Walston comes back.
Hey, and that's not a bad thing. I love Glenn.
I love Glenn Bateman,
and I love
too.
the head.
One of my favorite pictures is Ray
Walston. Mike loves
yeah.
Glenn Bateman, because the most painfully earnest Twitter post I've ever seen was Mike just posting a photo of Ray Walston as Glenn Bateman and urging us all to be more like Glenn. I love
be more pragmatic. It was like, let's cut the shit and let's be a little more pragmatic, which in some cases Charles is, but in some, I think he's a little more, I just don't see Glenn killing himself, even though I guess kind of technically he does in The Stand because he keeps pushing.
But there's a purpose.
Yeah, there's a purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in this case, he really doesn't kill himself because the Raggedy Man kills him. So we should probably talk about
let's talk about the Raggedy Man.
Fucking Christ.
On,
I liked President of Harvard I thought that was much funnier.
I did too.
I liked that a lot.
Yeah. I don't mind the evolution of where they go. The problem I have with it is the execution of a lot of this. Like, I don't like the idea that they all have to talk like puppets. Why can't they just subconsciously know what they're saying? Like, it does. The idea that everyone has to start talking in their voice is fucking stupid to me.
He's thinking about the movie.
It's dumb. It's and it doesn't work as a movie. Just have it be, in the head. They do that all the time. Second, the whole was it like doing things with his hands and mimicking and like acting like the people on the poster for Smile. Like I couldn't stand it. It was just like, and then him like, oh, he was bowing and making.
Well, it's like the wisecracking ghost that I always talk about. Like that's the trope I hate in King.
It works for Pascal. I still it works for Pascal. It works for Mr. Pascal.
But he's got his Pascal.
Where's
what
my
is
Pascal?
it?
It's gone. It's gone. No, it's
gone.
I had a pin that said in Pascal we trust.
What if they made a Pascal Funko?
I'd love it.
But no, okay. I'll just say, like, I don't like the wisecracking ghost, and I felt like he was veering on it here. I hate it, like when these malevolent creatures smile so much.
Yes.
Like that always just bothers me because I'm like, it just feels lazy. It feels like horror movie shit, and I guess that's fine because this book isn't really aspiring to more. But the problem with the Raggedy Man is it's like a flag-like figure who he doesn't really know what to do with him, and then that's kind of evident in the end where they just find the sweater and he's just gone. Yeah.
Again. No ideology.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Point. No, like, why is it? And also, if they can control anybody's voice, why is there one leader?
Yeah, it's very
like,
bizarre.
why isn't it just? This is such an unfinished book.
Yeah,
this is just a lot of cool ideas that no one had a patience to just sit down and try and figure out where the good book was.
It just sounds like the book had to get out at a certain time, right?
Yeah.
Like, so because he says he wrote it quick, they edited it quick, they got it out. Because I think he didn't. I think he was okay with putting this out because he needed, like I said, they needed something before Lisey's story, and Lisey's story obviously meant so much to him, and he still says to this day that that's his favorite book that he's written. So I think he was like, I'm gonna get Lisey's story perfect. And then, but I'll just knock this sort of crowd pleaser out. And I think that's kind of what happened here.
And he can write fast, crowd pleasing stuff that we love.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are books that we know that he wrote, well, like on speed.
Cujo.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like
He's
literally
even
on
Wizard
speed.
and Glass he wrote really quickly, and that's one of my favorites.
He can write a good, fast book. It's just this wasn't it. Like it's just, sometimes the magic trick doesn't work.
And I think it's
sometimes
partly,
the glassware falls on the table. You try to yank that.
Yeah, I think it's partly to do with like.
Oh yeah, which he uses in that as that's in this book. So yeah.
But like post-apocalyptic world, you have to build. Like there's so much world building, right? Like you have to completely re-examine the rules of existence. And that's hard to do in 7 months or however much time.
Which is why The Stand is 1,000 pages.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? This all reminds me of actually. Anna said it earlier. It's just like the greatest hits, but like the Wax Museum metaphor is great because what it reminds me of is what we always talk about with a lot of the bands that we love growing up. Is that by the third or after they've gotten, the 3 successful albums out, then they all of a sudden sometimes they'll do the weird one, maybe they'll do another experimental one, the concept one, but then they'll all of a sudden, and I'm looking at Weezer, they'll go, oh, this is a back to basics album. We're going back to basics. And you have singles that are good, but then it's like the Wayne's World thing where it's like, wait, that's Wayne's Basement, but that's not Wayne's Basement. And that's kind of how you look at the songs.
Never be the
it's
Blue
like,
album again.
yeah, it's like,
Stop
well, it
that.
kind of sounds like it's from the Blue album, but it sounds like a B-side. And like, that's what it feels like. This feels like, it's like, yeah, this is a lot like his Hookier books. And like, it's like, but it's not the Stan,
Yeah. Well, and my big problem with the Raggedy Man, this is one of my 2 major problems with this book, is that he is, unless I'm forgetting somebody, he is our only character of color, and he has literally no humanity. Like somebody's going to get mad at me, but like his body is a slave to this force. And the laziest, like, oh, but see, I'm not racist because he's in a Harvard sweater. Like, it's just really lazy characterization to try to add humanity to this character that is not a character at all.
What I will say is that he is probably, yes, the only Black man or person of color in the book, because King, as a white writer, never names characters color unless they are not white, right? So the movie Alice could perceivably be Latina or something. Like, who knows, right?
Well,
but
I'll
Samuel L. Jackson
he doesn't tell us.
Right.
I was gonna say Samuel L. Jackson plays Tom in the movie, so I always
and the
was
Raggedy
thinking
Man is
of-
white.
Yeah, and a friend of certain hosts of the pod. We might get him on. But I'll say I kept thinking of Samuel L. Jackson as Tom, so I didn't have that issue as much. But I understand.
Well,
what you're
I
saying.
pictured David Strathairn for some reason.
Oh, I love David Strathairn.
I do too.
Absolute king.
He's too old.
I know. I just like thinking.
You know who I saw?
I like him too. I like him too.
I just saw Toby Jones.
Toby Jones.
Well, that's
Toby
what I saw.
Jones,
Well, no, because because the way that he talks to Clay, it feels so similar to how Toby Jones' character in The Mist talks to like David Drayton the entire time. Like they're very partner in crime-esque.
Yeah, it's similar dynamic.
And very similar dynamic. And I don't know. I for some reason I pictured Toby Jones. Although there is one character
pairing a not very masculine guy with a really not very masculine guy. That is King's like favorite kind of pairing. Like to make the writer look real macho.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, well, to ground out the Raggedy Man, I did find the pin, and here it is. And there's the true Raggedy Man himself, Pascal. Victor Pascal.
Dream crush.
I'm gonna carry that on for 5 years because I'm the only one that still stands him. But
hey, I will stand Pascal.
Oh, so you're on the Pascal team? How about that?
Absolutely.
Team Pascal.
I don't have a problem with him, but it is
my dream.
It's a weird character to stand, Mike.
Look, it's because everyone's like, this is kind of a
Who do
great
you
movie.
ship with?
You know, I love Pascal because I like Brad. I can't remember his name. Brad. I fucked up.
Brad,
it's that picture of him with his like makeup and the sunglasses smoking a cigarette. That's what did it for me.
Yes, I love that one.
There we go.
So one little note that I have to add that we originally had in history that I want to throw in here is so Ray Huizinga was the construction worker who specialized in explosive and managed to make, a bomb that wouldn't be even deemed realistic in a Die Hard movie. That is, that was actually from a charity buy. So, and this is from the New York Times. This is pretty funny.
He also had him commit suicide. He had the guy who won the naming thing commit suicide.
This is the best. This is to that point. He goes, to my mind, and this goes back to the New York Times because remember the guy was really obsessed talking about the pain that King invokes in his characters. So he writes, to my mind, what's most unsettling about Cell has nothing to do with the novel proper, but with the fact that Pam Huizinga Alexander, the daughter of H. Wayne Huizinga, owner of the Miami Dolphins, paid $25,100 in an online charity auction for the privilege of having a character in the book named after her brother Ray. The fictional character, Ray Huizinga, provides crucial assistance to our hero Clay, yet he exits the story by placing a pistol under his chin and blowing off the top of his head.
Spoiler alert.
I guess King isn't a Miami Dolphins fan either or whatever. And it's just, it is funny, but to be fair, King specified that the character would die when he put this out for the charity. So
see, I love that. I would pay money to be killed by Stephen King.
I would too.
And it's an honorable death.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
Well, it's like
I had to reread that scene a couple of times though because I was like, wait, like
Yeah, it was a little weird. It was very fast.
It was
it
was sponsored by eBay, and it was for the First Amendment Project. And here's the listing I have. It's on Wikipedia. One and only one character name in a novel called Cell, which is now in work and which will appear in either 2007 or 2008. That says a lot too, because it means that he was really looking at years down the road. Buyers should be aware that Cell is a violent piece of work, which comes complete with zombies set in motion by bad cell phone signals that destroy the brain. Like cheap whiskey, it's very nasty and extremely satisfying. Character can be male or female, but a buyer who wants to die must, in this case, be female, which is weird. In any case, I'll require physical description of auction winner, including any nickname. Can be made up. I don't give a rip. I don't give a rip. I love that.
That's weird. No, I'll say I think it is an honor. Like when we interviewed the great author Brian Evanson on our On Writers series, you can check that episode out. He was talking about when he's written books that take place in like the Aliens universe and the Dead Space universe, as well as his like literature. And he always says when he writes those books, he names characters after his friends and then kills them in horrific ways, and his friends love it. And I'm like, that I would also love that. So I don't know. I think that's a fun thing for King to do. But yeah, any other thoughts on characters before we move on? All right, it's time for our next section, which we call Misery.
Oh, she died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
Okay. Jen?
I have
Misery?
a bridge between characters and misery because I wanted to pull up the conversation in which two female named characters have more than two lines of dialogue with each other, and there isn't any. So this book, I even looked at when they meet the lady who was they stumbled upon these two kids and the old guy's like kissing the boo-boo or something. And I was like, they got to name this character. Like they named that woman, but Alice doesn't talk to her. There are not nearly enough female characters, which is part of the reason that Alice's death pisses me off so much. Because then once she dies, then we got to get another lady in here and she's pregnant. So give me female characters.
Mine, I got one, page 25. It's right away. When this one of the zombies is attacking Clay and speaks in his weird language, the Abala. Clay goes, "All Abala, your Kazala, you fuck." Which, if you were a guy who's you make graphic novels, and this just started, and a man is running it with you a knife, are you going to have a little, quip before you kill
Abala,
him?
your Kazala. You think that's him being mad after writing Black House when he had to write so many Abalas? He was like, "I'll fucking Kazala you."
I can't stand when I know he loves music, and one of my biggest regrets is not talking more about music with him last year. I will say that, but there are so many music jokes throughout this entire thing that it like absolutely felt prescient in the ways that we would see on Twitter with him, because it's like every other character has some sort of commentary to talk about with the music that's playing either on the boomboxes or randomly when they're walking through the states. It just got so repetitive to me where I was just like, I get it that music's a big thing here, but like, does every time music pop up have to involve some sort of quip about whether or not this music sucks or whether
I know, and like Michael Bolton jokes, come on.
Yeah,
I like Michael Bolton. I wrote
we all like him
now
now.
in my notes. I've been singing "Said I Love You But I Lied" for like 2 weeks because of
I was gonna say too. I love Debbie Boone's "You Light Up My Life," and they are so hard on that song.
Well, to King's credit, like that, and I did play that actually after that because I thought the way it wrote, he wrote it was actually really compelling. It would be perfect. Like the song is perfect for that scene, and especially when it kicks in, it would be awesome. So,
Anna, what were you gonna say?
They also just never explain why the music, why they listen to the music.
Yeah,
so,
it's like this is a primitive taste or something, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Later, also, this is just a couple pages later. They're fighting more zombies. This guy is he's trying to distract one of them. He says, "Hey, I'm talking to you," and then because it was the only thing he could think of, "I fucked your mama and she was one dry hump." Come on, man. Come on.
I got one, and this is something that the listeners already pulled on our Discord, so they won't come at us. It's on page 160, and this happens multiple times, but this is a combo of two things that bother me in this book, which are the music jokes that I just said before, and now this. Alice was looking at him oddly. What? Clay said, checking to make sure their automatic weapon was safety that was already becoming second nature to him. You were talking in your sleep. You were saying, don't answer it. Don't answer it. Nobody should have answered it, Clay said. We all would have been better off. Ah, but who can resist a ringing phone? Tom asked. And there goes your ball game. Thus spake fucking Zarathustra, Clay said. Yeah. Alice laughed until she cried. Are you fucking kidding me? Like the reactions that people have to some of the jokes in these in his book sometimes are so insane. Like they're all like,
there's one where he's
dying.
like, "What's Tourette's syndrome? I don't know." And they all start laughing until they cry.
Yeah.
Sorry. That makes it hilarious.
It reminds me of the ending of Wet Hot American Summer when they have Alan Shemper who's making the dumb jokes. It's like, oh, arts and farts and crass, and they have like Zach Orth in the audience just like losing his shit. Like it's the funniest thing in the world. Like that's what it's just. These reactions are so unrealistic, and especially, I mean, sure, maybe they're loopy because it's the end of the world, but like laughed until you cried, and it's not even that funny of a joke. It's like, I don't know.
Another along those
lines. I didn't
lines.
get it. I didn't get that joke.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It's not even really a joke. Yeah.
Is that a funny? Does speak? Thus speaks Zarathustra. What?
Maybe she just thought the word was funny.
I mean, it is a funny word.
Well, I mean, I peed myself laughing when I was reading
when
it.
you just because of the word's so funny.
I was like, well, I got to change my pants. But no.
So page 234, they blow up. The thing blows up. There's body parts everywhere in a very sort of like funny, low budget movie kind of way. Like there's just a burning torso with a ring on its navel landed at Alice's feet, and she booted it off the ramp. And she says, five years of soccer. Like she's like cracking jokes about kicking flaming body parts off stuff, and I'm like, this girl is traumatized.
Yeah, that's it. See you in hell, dinner plate moment. Yeah.
I can't do that. That's all I got. Any other misery for you guys? Oh wait, I
just have like the music jokes. I think, I don't even want to like.
This is just weird phrasing. He describes Jordan's ears as neatly made at one point, and I could not figure out what was going on there. Like by God, I don't know.
I guess so.
No, Anna, by the headmaster.
Oh, just music stuff. Like I have it underlined. Like Eminem might have been a jerk, but he was right about that guy. Like
awful.
Yeah.
Why is that there?
Yeah. Yeah, I had that one on there. Yeah. What did you all make about the Cell meta joke? He's like, oh, maybe I'd call it Cell.
Oh, yeah.
I felt that was like a runoff of like the Dark Tower meta
how
stuff.
We feel like all of it's like, yeah.
Right.
Like, again,
right.
Wax Museum of Greatest Hits. Like, it's just like, even his jokes are kind of like not. They're just not jokes. Like that's the thing. They're like they have the shape of a Stephen King joke.
Oh, similarly, I forgot to mention this. We were talking about the ending. The ending is literally just spoiler alert for it. Is Bill and Audra. It's just the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. And so it's like that whole idea of like, will this weird stab in the dark to bring her back her mind work? And I don't know.
I'll end it before we say for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So. Okay, next section, some better writing in a little section we call Word Processor of the Gods.
And we're going to make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Or whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Okay, Word Processor of the Gods. This is where we read good writing, stuff that we thought was impressive. I'll kick us off. I just thought, I don't know, I thought this was an interesting, it's very short, but an interesting sentiment in a post-apocalyptic novel. They were talking about Mr. Riccardi, the hotel guy who hung himself. And when it says, Mr. Riccardi only looked away, and Clay thought, not without wonder, this is how a man looks when he's deciding that the risk of death is better than the risk of change. And that, to me, I think was relevant when you're talking about technology as well, and the ways in which technology is changing humanity. That to me was just a line that felt very of a piece with what this book is doing. So I don't know. That line really stood out and struck me. Jen, what do you have?
That one. I pulled that one too.
Oh,
I thought that was really interesting. And he talks about that. Like, there's some other book where he talks about like Jewish people not leaving Germany or Poland before the war. And he's like, well, most of them have pianos or so. And I can't remember what exactly he said, but I just think that is really interesting. And Mr. Riccardi's death, I think, is one of the strongest pieces of the book for me, because it does show, like, what do you do when the structure breaks down and when you are trying to hold the line, it doesn't exist anymore. And some people are just not going to be able to do this. They are so dependent on the old structure that they just
and also like having a purpose, because his purpose is like, well, I need to man the fort here until this guy gets back, you know, and if I leave my post, then what is my purpose? You know what I mean? That's an interesting notion. Anna, what do you have?
As good.
Yes.
This is just one thing that very short, but I loved it. It's the very beginning. He's talking about, of all things, this is super violent, section. The suicidal trio hit the rear of the police car, splattering the trunk with hair and gore, shattering the back window. The other two hit the hook and ladder as firemen dressed in bright yellow coats scattered like improbable birds.
I like that.
Improbable Birds is like, that would make a great like band name or maybe an album name. Yeah.
I love
Improbable Birds.
Mike, what do you have?
I have a couple. I actually think the opening paragraph, I'm going to side a little bit different. I think the opening paragraph is pretty strong. And if, it's certainly something that hooks me in. And as someone who, I just used to love writing opening leads all the time. I think it's just a hooky one, but I'm going to go a little bit further. I think that there are two things. One I like is when the quartet, as I call them, separates. It's chapter 11 on, whatever section it is, on 335. Clay stood beside the junction sign and watched their lights dwindle. He kept his eyes fixed on Jordan's, and it was the last to disappear. For a moment or two, it was alone at the top of the first hill to the west, a single small spark in the black, as if Jordan had paused there to look back. It seemed to wave. Then it was also gone, and the darkness was complete. Clay sighed, an unsteady, tearful sound, then shouldered his own pack and started walking north along the dirt shoulder of Route 11. Around 3:45, he crossed the North Berwick town line and left Kent Pond behind. It's just that's the chapter. And just, I love that image of Jordan actually waiting there, and you just see the small spark, and like, he's just really good at, placing a scene. That's kind of one of the reasons why the last book we did, Colorado Kid, I was just like hungry for those descriptions. So when we got back into this, I was like, oh yes, the scene setting. Yeah. But do you want to keep going around?
Well, I don't have that many more, because I don't think the prose in this book is as stunning as some other King ones, but like, I wasn't struck as many times. But I will say, he felt very much in his comfort zone when he was describing Alice's kind of slow death. I mean, he does that sort of thing really well, like that kind of slow, agonizing death, and this person who is kind of on that cusp between consciousness and death. And it's very sad and very unnerving. It's like all of these weird, I guess you can compare it to like a computer malfunctioning and just spitting out random bits of phrasing and stuff that, you get these like little moments and glimpses of Alice's life that never got a chance to be revealed in those moments. So I don't know. I found myself very moved by that. And then obviously Tom leaving his cat, that whole section to me was written extremely well and very sad. Yeah. Jen?
You know what? Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Well, I actually had a little line from Alice's death too, because I agree. I think it is really well written, even though it pisses me off that it happens. And I think I like this line better when the people are not like punished and crucified for it later. Like, if I can pretend that doesn't happen. But he says like after she's just like immediately been hit. It's on page 231. He says, "Here we are at the end of the world," he thought. He looked up in the sky and saw the evening star. And just thinking about that, like in the context of this like senseless violence, and we've been surrounded by senseless violence this entire book, but now it's somebody that we've gotten to know and we care about. And I feel like it really felt like hollow and empty at that point.
Yeah.
Sad in an effective way,
Yeah, I agree. I underline that section as well. What else do you guys have?
I got two more. One, and I'm not going to read it, but I loved when they're going through Malden early on in the beginning, and it reminded me of one of my favorite moments in 2005's War of the Worlds is when like Cruz is just walking through the streets and he's talking to folks that are on the streets, and you just get little glimpses of characters from that area. And when he's talking to like one of the bald men, that's clearly sounds like a bit like Bill Burr at points, where he's just like basically chatting about, oh, what's going on? And like, it starts off where you think the guy's menacing, but no, he's just kind of just, you know, Bostonian guy. And they actually have a fun conversation together, and you just get a little bit of the local flavor a little bit more. And you can tell like King is absolutely speaking from his own experience there. And I'm just imagining like what it's like when he's probably walking back from, you know, Fenway to his car to drive back to Maine. I thought that was really well done, especially just creating the scene a little bit. But the one that I have one more, and I actually didn't realize this, and it makes sense because this is a chronological reread, but we did the 10 stories for Halloween as a list. And Cell could technically fit in that because this does get close enough to Halloween. And here's the section. Ooh. So page 442. So this is like towards the end. Outside, under a gray evening sky, snow was spitting down. A cold wind scented up Springvale's lateless Main Street in undulating snakes. It seemed too early for snow, but of course it wasn't, especially this far north. When it came before Thanksgiving, you always griped. And when it came before Halloween, you griped double. And then somebody reminded you that you were living in Maine, not in the Isle of Capri. I just love that. Like, that's like really good. Like, just, you know, write what you know, which is what he always talks about. And he certainly does. And that definitely felt like someone with, again, experience. So that was I like those little moments there.
Love it.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. Next section. It's the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
Here in the cemetery, we break down the spooky stuff. This book wasn't particularly scary to me, but it was quite gross. Yes. And I think that is valid. If we go back to Danse Macabre, King said, one of the lowest forms of horror is revulsion, but is absolutely valid type of horror. And there is a lot of revulsion in here. I mentioned hold on, I'm going to bring it up because it's so good, and I teased it earlier. This is the big explosion at the end. The mutilations and decapitations were bad. The pools of blood, the littered limbs, but the scattered clothes and shoes with nobody inside them were somehow worse, as if the explosion had been fierce enough to actually vaporize part of the flock. A man walked towards them with his hands to his throat in an effort to stem the flow of blood pouring over and between his fingers. It looked orange in the growing glow of the hall's burning roof, while his intestines swung back and forth at the level of his crotch. More wet loops came sliding out as he walked past them, his eyes wide and unseeing. King loves intestines dripping out. Mm-hmm. And I love it. But then this is the really good part. We had to do it. It was all we could do, Jordan said. He looked at a headless woman, a legless man, at something so torn open it had become a flesh canoe filled with blood, which is so fucking good. So yeah, I have that one to kick us off. What else do you guys have?
Well, I just want to say I'd forgotten about the flesh canoe, and I really thought that was going to be in pound cake, and that was a euphemism for a dick.
I know, right?
Happy that it was gore.
Oh, I thought that was going to be a euphemism for something else, actually.
I agree. I also thought it was going to be in pound cake. I will say right here that I don't have anything, and that also my shameful admission is that like I had to skip over a lot of that first part. Like, I am a big horror fan, but I get grossed out and like I get queasy and
he's going off.
I can read it. I can't watch it. But
I usually can read it, but this was a lot.
The scene when they're falling from the buildings, I pulled that really was kind of upsetting, especially considering like writing that in the wake of 9/11 and knowing like that, you know, that we're seeing like the impact of something I think a lot of us have seen a picture of like in the midst of. But I did find one spooky moment that I really liked. When Mr. Riccardi has just died by suicide on page 55, Clay has just found the body. And he says once he was around the reception desk, he faced the street and crossed the lobby. He got close enough to the long broken window to see the frightened faces of his new friends, then remembered he had forgotten his fucking portfolio again and had to go back. Reaching for it, he felt certain that Mr. Riccardi's hand would steal out of the gathering darkness behind the desk and close over his. That didn't happen, but from overhead came another of those thumps. Something still up there, something still blundering around in the dark, something that had been human until 3:00 this afternoon.
I had that same exact line. Yeah. I was literally just about, because I thought that was so terrifying.
Just it reminded me of Grandma too, you know?
Yeah. That I loved that image. And just that the callback there was incredible. And it kind of reminded me of Larry's going through the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yeah. You just hear something off in the distance. And it's like, because you know that there is death right in front of you.
Yep.
So that is horrific. Like, what if this body starts moving? But then there's this unknown death that is like just feet away that you can't see too, you know?
Yeah, the most purely scary part, I think, of the book for me that wasn't just gore was when they're at Cheatham Lodge and they wake up in the morning and the lights dim, and they say it was dimmer because there were phone crazies at every window they could see, crowded up to the glass and peering in at them. Dozens, maybe hundreds of those strange blank faces, most marked by the battles they had been through and the wounds they had suffered during the last anarchic week. And that, to me, just anybody staring through a window is usually pretty terrifying to me. And the idea of hundreds doing that is, to me, like, I don't know, absolutely horrifying. So
I love the beginning of zombie stories just because I love people figuring things out and just seeing things firsthand. So the whole sequence in Tom's garden was just that was good. Zombie porn for me. It's just like seeing their behaviors firsthand, seeing the early onset behaviors for some of them. The whole idea of them basically just being right outside, and if they make a noise, all hell would break loose for them. That stuff, especially daytime. To seeing it happen all daytime was just, I don't know, really got under my skin. Another one that was a little later on, it's on page 275, chapter 2, and another, I don't know, God knows what. Probably, it's in the Fading Roses, This Garden's Over. Remember the section that's not a location.
No, it's the name of my hometown.
Oh, interesting. Your hometown is Fading Roses, This Garden's Over, Michigan?
Yep.
Is that it? Okay.
Fading Roses, This Garden's Overville, Michigan.
Nice.
Metro Detroit. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Right next to Beverly Hills. At around, this is on page 275, at around 4 a.m, Alice bid Clay and Tom a foggy goodnight and stumbled off to bed. The two men sat in the kitchen drinking iced tea and not talking much. There seemed to be nothing to say. Then, just before dawn, another of those great groans, made ghostly by distance, rode in on the foggy air from the northeast. It wavered like the cry of a theremin in an old horror movie, and just as it began to fade, a much louder answering cry from Gaiten, where the Raggedy Man had taken his new, larger flock. Just that feeling and notion that, like, this is all around you, and it's just that the feeling of hearing that groan. I don't care how like unscary the phoners can be at times, because they just become things out there, which I think is the point. But just that I don't think you'd ever get used to that. It would be so scary, and it reminds me of one of my favorite accoutrements of Resident Evil 2. Especially in the PS1 game, the PS1 version, where when you're outside, all you hear are like zombie groans.
Yeah.
No matter where you're standing, and you don't see the zombies because it's just supposed to be implied that you're in the city and you hear them everywhere, and that is so unnerving to me. And so, the audio of that was felt for sure.
Yeah, it's like in The Battery too. I don't know. Have y'all seen The Battery?
No, I've heard
it's a zombie movie. It's really good, but there's a part at the end where it's like all they can hear is zombie groans. And I texted you about this, Mike. I was in my car the other night waiting for my son to finish.
Oh yeah.
And I kept hearing this dog howl, and I was like sitting in my dark car, like right next to the woods, and I just kept hearing this howl, and it freaked me out.
I was saying it's the wolves of the Adams.
Exactly. It's like if I don't show up on Thursday, it's because the wolves got me.
Oh yeah, I gotta say, two dogs in peril being attacked within like the first 3 pages of this book. Let's just say I was not happy.
Yeah.
Jen?
I got 2 more. I don't want to read the one about the religious woman, but that really kind of unnerved me, you know, because that's a lot of what I think we would see now. But I'm happy that we didn't have another zoo, you know, like if he was going to revisit something, like I would rather it be like a Mrs. White kind of thing. But the one that I pulled was the Nickersons, like when they find the bodies of Mrs. Nickerson and her daughter. One, like there are two sections, and one of them is just when he's describing the bodies, and it's really gross. But the other is kind of describing what happens, and it kind of like made me think about something we talked about with our Colorado Kid episode, is like what happens when your body is discovered, like when you are dead and you have no more agency. And I thought I was going to put this in like Pound Cake or Misery, and then I ended up putting it in The Cemetery because it just really got to me. Okay, so on page 114, her daughter got one, though, and yet a cell phone, and Heidi attacked her mother. Did Beth Nickerson try to reason with her daughter before driving her to the floor with a blow from the rolling pin, or did she just strike? Not in hate, but in pain and fear. In any case, it wasn't enough, and Beth wasn't wearing pants. She was wearing a jumper, and her legs were bare. Clay pulled down the dead woman's skirt. He did it gently, covering the plain working-at-home underwear that she had soiled at the end. Heidi, surely no older than 14 and perhaps only 12, must have been growling in that savage nonsense language they seemed to learn all at once after they got a full dose of Sane Be Gone from their phones, saying things like Rast and Ila and Kazalakan. The first blow from the rolling pin had knocked her down, but not out, and the mad girl had begun to work on her mother's legs. Not little nips either, but deep searing bites, some that had driven all the way to the bone. Clay could see not only tooth marks, but ghostly tattoos that must have been left by young Heidi's braces. And so, probably screaming, undoubtedly in agony, almost certainly not aware of what she was doing, Beth Nickerson had struck again, this time much harder. Clay could almost hear the muffled crack as the girl's neck broke. Beloved daughter, dead on the floor of the state-of-the-art kitchen with braces on her teeth and a state-of-the-art cell phone by one outstretched hand. And had her mother stopped to consider before popping the gun from its clip between the TV and the can opener, where it had been waiting, who knew how long, for a burglar or rapist to appear in this clean, well-lighted kitchen. Clay thought not. Clay thought there would have been no pause, that she would have wanted to catch up with her daughter's fleeting soul while the explanation for what she had done was still fresh on her lips. That whole scene is just so haunting on so many levels. Like there's the element of like, it reminds me of The Regulators, where there's the dead body where you can see up her skirt for half of it. And while like there's a bit of like juvenile humor there, it's also like, it's just horrifying to think about, like, you're dead and you have no more control about what people see, and just also the thought of this being this mother and daughter's death, it's just horrifying.
I think the last line there is what really gets me, the apology for what she'd done still fresh on her lips.
Yeah, just not, but like reacting, because when your daughter is chewing so hard into your leg and it hurts so much, that's just a natural reaction as a human being, you know? And then you think about what you've done. Yeah.
Especially if you have guns around.
Exactly.
Like that's what happens when people have guns around, is they use them.
Well, and there's another story that it's not a cell phone, it's a gun, you know, like there's a whole parallel between that kind of like technology, you know, or weapons, which I guess is maybe what The Stand is more going for, but yeah.
Any others?
Yeah. I have one more. It's really towards the end when Clay is on his own. It's from the first chapter of Save to System, which is on page 435 on mine. About half a mile south of the feeder road, he encountered another phoner, this one a woman, who was pacing rapidly back and forth across the highway like a captain on the foredeck of her ship. She looked around at Clay with such sharp regard that he raised his hands, ready to grapple with her as if she attacked him. She didn't. Who fada? She asked, and in his mind quite clearly he heard, who fell? Daddy, who fell? I don't know, he said, easing past her. I didn't see. Where na? She asked, pacing more furiously than ever, and in his mind he heard, where am I now? This he made no attempt to answer, but in his mind he thought of Pixie Dark, asking, who are you? Who am I? Clay walked faster, but not quite fast enough. The pacing woman called after him, chilling him. Who? Da. And in his mind, he heard this question echo with chilling clarity. Who is Pixie Dark? Like, that's creepy.
Yeah, that was creepy. I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that half in, half out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the only thing other than that scared me is Clay getting under his bed where all the dust bunnies are, because that would make me itch and
Dolores Claiborne.
Get sick. And yeah, seriously, that looked good.
All right, for wrap up here, It's time for Pound Cake.
After all you've been talking, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin. Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven. He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
All right, Pound Cake. I've got one. This is classic, old school. I'm talking like vintage Pound Cake. Page 37. Naked man comes out of nowhere with brand new Nikes with bright red swooshes, and his cock swung from side to side like the pendulum of a grandfather clock on speed. Love that speed.
Yeah, on speed is the part that really makes it, isn't it?
Bing bong. Anna, what do you got?
I have page 396. He liked her bare.
Yeah, I got that one.
Touch and squeeze her breasts through that high-necked white silk blouse even more. Oh, yeah. He liked to bring her nipples up until he could see them poking the cloth. Yeah, he has a real thing for like rubbing nipples. Yeah, like I think we've talked about this before.
Definitely
right.
a bag of
and
bones.
I guess he likes sort of like the teacher look.
Yeah, like, hot for teacher.
Yeah.
Alice looked dreadfully cute in her pajamas, which is the sentence that will haunt me.
Just stop
I
there.
Know. That's all I'm gonna say. I was just like, Clay, come on, man. Come on.
Yeah,
I know it's the end of the world.
Pants.
But yeah, she's 15 years old. Okay. Anything else? What do you guys got?
9 on page 9. Her upper lip had turned completely inside out, revealing a pink velvet lining as intimate as a vulva.
Oh.
I mean, not as bad, but like still, it's like there's no other way to describe this.
Like, yeah, I know. He has a habit of doing that. Like, it'll just be like a really beautiful section, and then he'll just be like he'll be like, I don't know, the breadstick had grown so stale it was like a big throbbing cock. And it's
right,
like,
yeah.
All right.
Felt just like a flesh canoe.
Like a cock gone soft. I think it's actually also like.
Well,
there's a surprisingly like sort of light amount of poop.
Yeah, I know.
There's
I
some poop because it wouldn't be king without some poop.
We have some. There's some scatological humor here. 350.
Humor.
You go. The older man replied. He was wearing baggy Bermuda shorts with huge brown stain on the seat. It might have been mud or shit. It was shit.
It was shit.
It was shit.
Yeah.
We know what it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't toy with us.
Come on.
Any other pound cake here before we move on to King's Dominion? All right, cool. It's time for King's Dominion.
There's another world out there.
I know there is.
We're in King's Dominion, baby. Here we talk about connections to other King works. Jen, what do you got?
I have quite a few, I think. Well, we've already talked about Alice Maxwell, and we've talked about the plump woman feels like Mrs. White a lot, but we also mention the Freiburg Fair and the Micmac Indian Territory, which is on page 307. And then TR90, I believe, is that the same town road?
It's in multiple King books.
Yeah, I feel like that Bag of Bones is the one that was that I was remembering, although
yeah, it's in Bag of Bones, Under the Dome, Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, and If It Bleeds, actually.
Yeah, so it's unincorporated is the only thing I remember about it. And then I've got two that are like King's Dominion, but also Us Dominion too, because the head's death. Did anybody else picture the doctor's death in Halloween 2 when he turns around and he's got the syringe in his eye?
Dr. Mixter.
Yeah. And then I have to mention the baby shoe because another one of my favorite characters that I've mentioned on this pod has a baby shoe, and that is Ethan Hawke in Alive. He's got a little red baby shoe that he gives to the survivors. So there's mark your Alive bingo cards.
Well, you mentioned Micmac Burial Ground, and guess who has a baby shoe there? Gage.
Oh, that's right. Gage does.
Which would pop up again, what, in Tommyknockers?
Insomnia.
Insomnia. Yeah.
And hey, good.
No, go for it.
Well, there's Clay's graphic novel.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
About
which is
an apocalyptic cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
The Dark Wanderer.
Dark
Who could
Wanderer.
that cowboy be?
Yeah.
The Dark Man.
It's rolling.
Yeah. It's rolling. And then also there is a Charlie the Choo Choo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There on page 321, he makes reference to Rattlesnake, which is his future story.
that he exclusively revealed on the Losers Club podcast.
Just such a schmucky King's Dominion there to mention.
Juniper Hill, right at the beginning.
Juniper Hill, yeah. He mentions a talisman on page 165.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a,
He says full dark a couple times too.
He says full dark in every book because I've started to notice that. Yeah.
There is a Route 19, page 290.
Oh.
There was one part. God, did I put that in pound cake? I did. What an idiot. I said there's something if you add it up, it becomes 19 on page. Oh yeah. So he says on it, Clay could read the number LN 6409B. So 6 plus 4 plus 9. 19. So there's that. And then I think 297. So this is kind of a little bit of an us, but not really. I mean, just mostly just interesting to note. I think these are the first books to mention the Boston Red Sox win. Which obviously he would do with Faithful, but I think this is his first actual fictional story to actually mention the World Series win. And then also, I'm pretty sure that this is the first book to mention the podcasts. Because on page 296, he says, one more thing. I don't know why the phone people want all the normies in Cashwalk, but I know what a roundup usually means for the cattle. You might think about that the next time you're getting one of your nightly podcasts. And it's 2006. I don't remember podcasts being mentioned in Colorado Kid, and it's been too long for me to remember The Dark Tower, but I doubt that he mentions
there's no podcast in Dark Tower.
So that this might be the first book where you actually hear the concept, the medium of podcasting. So that's cool.
All right.
Oh, one more. And then he mentions on page 323, the next Tom Hanks picture, Star of the Green Mile. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anna?
I have a couple. One is that language sounded a little bit like Kang Toy.
Yeah.
And talk, right? Totally. And then this is kind of a reach one, but
we love reaches.
The Raggedy Man is wearing crimson.
Crimson. He's the Crimson President.
Yeah, he's the president of Crimson.
Here's a question then. Is the Raggedy Man a better villain than the Crimson King?
Yeah.
Sorry, my dog is telling us to wrap this up. Forgive me. So let's do so in a section we call Final Thoughts.
Wrapping it up.
Sorry.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
All right. Final thoughts. Clearly we know what my dog thinks about this book. I will say, hold on, I have mine here. Okay. So, I didn't much care for the ensemble, which is the biggest selling point of The Stand. Nor did I find the normies/phonies tension to be as morally compelling as The Stand. But I will say that once the book got cooking, it was hard to put down. It reads easy, some interesting ideas. In the end, though, it's like the meme. When you want The Stand and your mom says, "We have The Stand at home," sell is The Stand at home. I give it 2.5 bright red Pennywise clown noses, and that's my rating. Jen.
Like I said earlier, I enjoyed this read a lot more than I was expecting to. I think before this, I would have put this in my bottom 10 of King books. And I think it's bumped its way up to a midpoint now. Like I said, because once I knew what the ending was going to be, I was a lot more invested in the writing and the story and the characters. So I am giving it a 3. It was originally a 2.5, but I gave half a point because I've been talking so much shit about this book for a long time, and now I'm eating a little bit of crow. But I'm taking that half point away because we need a lot more female characters. So I am stuck at 3.
Anna, go for it.
I think 2. I mean, maybe 2.25. There's some King books I haven't read, so I don't know if this is in the bottom 10% for him in general. It's pretty unsatisfying, like I would say. Like it's not like a howler, like I want to throw it across the room, it's so bad or anything, but that's because he's a competent writer, and I love his stuff. And even those when your favorite band starts making shitty albums, you still kind of buy them.
Yeah.
Like, and you're
Still
like,
gonna
that
listen
still
to Weezer's
sounds like
Africa,
the band.
yeah.
I still listen to Weezer,
Yeah.
like,
They got some
and
hits every once in a while,
yeah, and even if it's not a hit, you're like, well, this sounds like Weezer, and I
Yeah.
like Weezer, so this sounds like Stephen King, and I like Stephen King. Steve Albini had like a joke about that at some point. Like, if you like jelly beans, like, like he compared. I remember what it was like when everybody sounded like pavement. He was like, it's like everybody eating green jelly beans all the time. But so it's like a 2. I think 2 bright red Pennywise clown noses. I think if you're a completist like we are, if you are listening to this podcast, you should read the book.
Yes.
If you are not listening to this podcast, you should if you're not the type of person to listen to a 3-hour Stephen King podcast, you probably won't like the book.
Yeah. Mike?
All right, I'll round it out. So I keep thinking about King borrowing Graham Greene's definition of entertainments to describe this book, and I think how dead on that is, because this is an entertainment book in the kind of hooky way that you mentioned earlier, Randall, about why we were sold on King. It's like, oh, the killer dog, the killer car, the killer hotel. But the thing is that when you read those books, you realize there's so much more than their respective covers. And that's why, you become a constant reader, or in our case, you decide to dedicate 6 years of your life to it, week to week. And what I enjoy most about Cell is how it does dial back to those roots. It gets back to that simple elevator pitch, and it really is easy to dive right in. Because say what you will about the nutritional value of this book, I think the opening to this novel is about as thrilling as any of the titles I just referenced. I mean, it's what we've been saying. It's greatest hit stuff. And while there's not a lot of meat around this bone, I think he does offer just enough for us to keep on nibbling. It's like what you were saying, Randall. Like, it is really readable. And sometimes that's all I really want. Like, and if you can do it well, and I think King does, even if it's not as prolific as The Stand, and he definitely doesn't have much to say with the metaphor, or at least as coherent as he is with the metaphor, and say something like Cujo or maybe even Misery, I did find myself eating this shit up. And to be fair, this could have been just kind of a baseline zombie thriller, but it's not. Like, King really does try to go at least with the extra amount of the layer in, like, pseudoscience. Like, I did actually like the parallel of our brains being hard drives, and I do enjoy reading about the psychological and even sociological nuances that he kind of scotch tapes to some of this stuff. I found myself going like, well, shucks, that's kind of nifty. So I think a little effort goes a long way to being just a little bit more than strictly entertainment. But again, nothing is wrong with being just entertainment. I mean, especially if you do it well. So, and I think that's kind of why I like this book. And I think that's also probably why I went so hard on the new movie Plane, starring Gerard Butler. So
Dying to see Plane.
Gave that 4 stars on Letterboxd, which just because it's fucking fun, and that's all I want sometimes. So shit is fun. I think this is still fun. I think I had fun talking about it today with everyone here. So I'm going to go 3 bright red Pennywise clown noses.
Oh, it's the company.
Yeah.
That's
it is the company. That is definitely the company. It's more so the company than the Raggedy Man, for sure.
Awesome. Let's do some quick plugs. And Anna, like, what's coming up with you?
I have another podcast. If you like listening to 3 hours Stephen King podcast, you might like listening to an hour of me and Dan Dresner talking about science fiction from the point of view of people who are also really nuts about politics. We recently completed Cold Sci-Fi Winter, doing books and movies that are set in cold places.
Oh, nice.
Including The Thing, which is one of my favorite, probably top 20 horror movies. I love that movie. And we also did Alien versus Predator, and we ended with Groundhog Day.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which I guess we did see our shadows because we did end Cold Sci-Fi Winter. And
what's the name of the podcast?
Oh, that's probably important. Yes, it is called Space the Nation, and you can get it wherever fine podcasts are sold. And we are also on Patreon at patreon.com/spacethenation. And I write. I'm on Instagram, Anna Marie Cox.
Love it. Find Anna. Jen, you have a new special Patreon show with the Losers Club.
I do. Yeah, so I finished listening to Cell, which the audiobook was very good. And I switched immediately over to Firestarter, reading that for the 10th time, I think, at this point.
Say, Jesus.
I know, I love it so much, though. But so, yeah, we're doing a little spinoff for Patreon called Character Corner, where we do deep dives into characters that stretch across novels, or characters and looking at their different cinematic representations. And we are kicking it off with Charlie McGee, who may be one of my favorite people in the entire world, real or fictional. And we're going to do it on Drew Barrymore's birthday, too. So
love it.
Super excited about that.
Mike, what can we expect from the Losers Club in the future?
Well, Jesus, next month is weird. We're doing a rerun of Lisi's story. So, if you didn't read it,
this is this crowd.
This is this crowd right here. Yeah.
Well, not me.
Not you, but with the three of us. And I believe Joanna Trotter was there too. But yeah, we did that back in 2021, which is a blur year for me, even though it was a good year. After 2020,
along with the series when that came out. Yeah.
So we went with the series with that. So you could actually listen to it now, but we're going to rerun it for those that are reading along, and also so it looks cohesive when we're looking at the whole realm of this. And also to give us a break, because we're going to be covering a lot of movies. So we're going to be covering the film Cell, starring John Cusack, our favorite Twitter user, John Cusack.
We're going to ask him again to come on. We'll see what
he's going to try, and he won't. But
answer the call, John,
because he hates me. But and then also we're going to be covering the new Children of the Corn.
Yes.
The one that we've been waiting for since I think that we started this podcast. And then we're going to be back in Hollywood King, covering whatever headlines are out there. And
if you do want a book to bone up on, we are bringing back Crichton Cast in March. We're going to be talking about Sphere. So me, Justin, and Dan are going to be back with that. So stay tuned. It's going to be a good time. And we also, I'm just going to tease it again. We have a very special interview coming up that I'm very excited
I didn't know if
about.
You wanted to do the plug on that. So
I don't know if I want to say it yet.
Okay.
When is this episode coming out?
Well, it comes out literally tomorrow on Patreon. So
when does it come out? So it'll be the week after that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't know yet. So let's just keep it secret.
Okay, we're going to keep it a secret. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Halloweenies, what's coming up?
Well, we're ditching Chucky for a bit, and we're going to be going to Manhattan to cover Scream 6, which I am so excited about. It's just going to be the biggest Scream movie because Jenna Ortega is huge, and it's in New York, and it looks different, and it seems to be about cults. So I'm very excited. So can't wait for that.
Cult of Thorn or whatever.
Cult of Thorn, probably Cult of Ghostface, but I'm very excited to see it, and I love Melissa Barrera, so I'm very excited to see her back. So I can't wait. I cannot wait for this movie. So we're going to be covering that. And we also
I'm on the Child's Play 2 episode, so you should.
And you are in the Child's Play 2 episodes, which is out now. So you can get that on our main feed. And also, because we don't have enough projects on our hands, we are doing our third spinoff, which is Fortune and Glory, which is Indiana Jones podcast, because that's my favorite franchise. And I'm excited about James Mangold's fifth version of this movie, fifth movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So we're going to be doing, we're covering every one of the Indiana Jones movies leading up to that release. And oh my God, I'm terrified of how long those episodes are going to be. So it'll be fun.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Subscribe. Give us a review on iTunes, only if you're going to give us 5 stars. And all these things. My brain's fried. I got it. I picked up my cell phone and it wiped away my hard drive. One last thing, Mike, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah. So yeah, like Randall said, keep this 5-star streak going on. It's pretty good. I liked it. We just posted 6 of the 5-star reviews that have been going on. They're very great. They're very nice, especially by comparison to the 1 stars where they're like, oh, you don't cover 11/22/63. Well, guess what? We are going to cover it. We're going to cover it later this year. I don't know why that's a 1-star review.
Ever hear about time, dude?
Yeah. Well,
all right.
And then also,
on
yeah,
that note,
I think that's good.
Let's sign off so my dog doesn't rip my throat out with long days. And
pleasant
night. Bye, everyone.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. Tune in next week. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.